Welcome, everyone. This is a great turnout, and we have more people coming in, but it is 1:05, so I am going to start talking because otherwise we will be here forever, and nobody wants that. So here's how today is going to work. Welcome to the Phoenix DSA's July regular chapter meeting, where we are hosting a National Political Committee forum featuring 12, that's right, 12 of the most active organizers in the DSA today. They represent 11 of the most active and influential caucuses and factions within the DSA today, as well as our uncaucused independent comrades. I want to thank all of our participants for being here today. Really quick, I'm just going to read off all of your names. Everybody in a moment will have a chance to introduce themselves, but today we have joining us Aaron B. from the Lighthouse Caucus, Austin B. from the Anti-Zionist Slate, Austin L.E. from Red Labor, C.S. Jackson from the Libertarian Socialist Caucus, Francis from Groundwork, Jesse D. from Reform and Revolution, Jorge R. from Emerge, Laura W. from Bread and Roses, Luisa M., who is an independent, uncaucused comrade, Megan R. from Red Star, Rael AR from Socialist Majority Caucus, and Rashad X from Marxist Unity Group. Thank you all for attending this meeting and spending some time with us in Phoenix DSA. We really appreciate your time, and we're excited to hear from each and every one of you. While I got everybody on that topic, I'd like to point out that there are many more chapter members than just Phoenix DSA here today. We have members from around the country with us, including members from Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Missouri, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, North Carolina, Rhode Island, Texas, Utah, Washington State, and all the way from London, England. Thank you all for being here. This is going to be an amazing event, and we're all going to learn a lot. So with that, I'm going to jump into our event. And the first thing to do with that is speed run through some Phoenix DSA related stuff. I have dropped into the chat our agenda, and I'm going to get started right now. Today, we are calling ourselves to order at 1:07, and I'm going to make a motion myself that we approve this agenda. Do I have a second from anybody? I see a second from Sakura. Thank you very much, Sakura. Do we have any objections? Seeing none, we are moving on to the next part after I finish writing this down. And readmit one more person. And now we continue. First up, a little executive report. Phoenix DSA is doing great right now. We're getting ready to send some members out to convention. We've opened up a few new campaigns. We're really excited about our labor work. We're very excited about our mutual aid work. And we're very excited about this event. We have put a lot of work into making this happen, and we are super pumped about the level of engagement that we are getting from around DSA. It gives me a lot of hope that we are going to be able to get a lot done at this convention. I'm really, really very excited about that. First up, for the mutual aid, we need to make sure that everybody who is in the Phoenix area is able to attend Really, Really Free Market. That's tomorrow morning, and that's going to be at 7 to 9 a.m. so that we avoid the heat. It's in Daly Park in Tempe, and it is a mutual aid event that provides for our communities. We provide for food there. We bring baby supplies, a lot of different house goods, things that you're going to need just on a day-to-day basis. And if you need it and you find it there, it's yours, no cost, no catch, no swaps necessary. We are really just there to support the people as much as we can. In addition, we're working with a few groups around Phoenix to make sure that the people who are dealing with the heat out here are able to, here, I got a link for this, actually get some water. So let me drop this in the chat really quick, copy on that link. Throwing it into the chat. Boom, boom. This is an event that is being pushed by our mutual aid committee chair, Dylan Dugan. I'm not sure if he's here with us yet, but he's a fantastic comrade and everybody should meet him. Up next, we're going to talk a little bit about our labor committee. We are doing a lot of work with Strike Ready as we transition into a coalition building forward-facing phase. We're not sure exactly when or if or at what spots the UPS Teamsters are going to go on strike in Arizona, but we are plugging ourselves into those networks, and we are preparing to make sure that we get our members onto the picket lines whenever we need to. And with that in mind, we have created something called the Phoenix DSA Strike Force, which is a group that we joined in order to text each other day of strike events, essentially. Sometimes you're not allowed or able to put out events in advance in order to protect the strikers' jobs, essentially. And so if you're a Phoenix member or a Phoenix DSA member, or you live in the Arizona area and you want to get into our labor work, joining our strike force is going to be one way to make sure you're really there at a consistent clip. And that is also our only chapter announcement, which brings us in exactly 5 minutes, way to go me, to our 2023 Political Committee Candidate Forum. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Aaron B. I totally agree. I'm really excited about it. And we are going to dive right in. Up first, we are going to have our introductions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. I will let you know when it is coming up. Yeah, exactly. We're going for that, hopefully a better version than those movies, but I appreciate it, C.S. Jackson. So first up, we have Rael from Socialist Majority Caucus. 2 minutes. Let me ask you to unmute and go to town.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this together. And hello, Phoenix. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Rael Monterreyes, he, him. I'm a member of the Bronx and Upper Manhattan branch of New York City DSA, and I'm running with Socialist Majority Caucus. I formally joined DSA in 2021 and have since represented my branch at 2 of our chapter's conventions. I serve on the CLC, the Citywide Leadership Body Committee, which is the leadership body for the chapter, and I've also served on my local branches, OC and Electoral Working Group OC. I've worked on several legislative campaigns and electoral campaigns, including Kristen Gonzalez, Vanessa Gudelo, David Alexa's Good Cause, and New Deal for CUNY. I am running for NPC because I believe the experiences that I've gained in New York City DSA and throughout New York State doing DSA and campaign-related stuff will allow me to forward the important work on a national scale. I especially look forward to working with the Multiracial Organizing Committee, the NEC, the National Electoral Commission, along with many other committees on the national level, and many great comrades as well. Thank you, and I look forward to answering some questions.
Thank you very much. That was incredibly efficient. I really, really appreciate that. Up next is Megan from Red Star. And we have on deck, excuse me, I'm totally incorrect about that. Right now is C.S. Jackson, and then up next is Megan from Red Star. And I apologize, C.S. Jackson. That's on me. Your joke threw me for a loop, and now you're up.
I'll do my best Megan impression. My name is C.S. Jackson, he, him, and I'm running for the NPC under the Libertarian Socialist Caucus Slate with Tom J. We believe in a member-led organization built on a culture of trust and transparency and accountability. And I'm joined today by the chairman of my NPC campaign, Gabe the Cat. Information about the processes and the happenings of our organization should not be a commodity. I co-wrote the NHGO resolution with these things in mind. I also signed on to the Red Star Leadership Pledge with most of the panel. And if you like what I have to say today and want to join LSC or want to see a detailed list of my priorities, mention it in the chat and a comrade will help.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much, C.S. Jackson. I really appreciate your time and thank you for being here. Up next, we do have, for real this time, Megan R. And up next, we have Jorge from Emerge on deck. Let me ask Megan to unmute. I got to do stuff.
All right. Hi, thanks so much. I am so glad to be here. My name is Megan R. I am a candidate with Red Star's Slate, along with my comrades John L. and Sam H.L. I originally started out in Southwest Louisiana DSA when we were still in OC. Went on to become the 100K captain and eventually a co-chair of that chapter. And then I moved and I did a short stint in Rael's chapter in his branch, Bronx Upper Manhattan. And then I ended up here in rural central New York, sort of halfway between Ithaca and Syracuse. So I've been in a very small developing chapter that's coming up. I've been in the biggest chapter, and now I am at large. So I feel like I've seen DSA from a few different angles. I'm also the National Mutual Aid Working Group co-chair, which has been really great, being able to meet different comrades from around the country, look at the ways they're doing mutual aid as standalone projects, but also look at the ways they're using mutual aid to do things like strike support or build out housing justice campaigns. So we're having a lot of fun doing that. MOG is like a great vibes area of the org if you're looking for a place to get involved nationally. And I think that's about it.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate your time. We have up now Jorge, and on deck we have Austin B.
All right, thank you so much to Phoenix DSA for organizing all of this. I know it's a really a lot of coordination. My name is Jorge Rocha. My pronouns are they, he, and I am from New York City DSA, and I'm representing the Emerge Caucus, which is the Communist Caucus in NYC DSA. The first time I ever heard of DSA was when AOC won her primary in 2018 against Joseph Crowley. I moved to New York City a month later and began attending DSA events. Just about a year since I first heard of DSA, I decided to formally join the organization on July 3rd, 2019. So only just 2 weeks ago, I celebrated 4 years being in this amazing organization. Since joining, I've been involved with many kinds of organizing, abolition organizing, mutual aid, political education, anti-war, internationalism, electoral, digital comms, and international organizing, pretty much everything but labor, unfortunately. In terms of what leadership positions I've held, there have been several. Locally, I've been a delegate for every single local convention for NYC DSA since 2020, been a member of political education committee here in New York City for years, and I've previously been co-chair of North Brooklyn DSA and currently serve on NYC DSA, citywide leadership committee. But regarding national leadership, I've been a delegate to the national convention last time, but also this year. I've been serving on the steering committee for DSA's international committee since last year, along with Luisa, who's on this call. During my tenure, I represented DSA speaking to UN ambassadors, international members of parliament, national coalitions, leader of left-wing parties, and speaking to thousands at the March 18 rally against US empire in front of the White House. So that's me.
Pretty cool. That's all. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, I really appreciate your time, your experience, and your input on this panel. Thank you very much for being here, Jorge. Up next, we have Austin B. Thank you very much for joining us from the Anti-Zionist Slate. And on deck, we have Austin R.
Hi, comrades. Before I introduce myself, I want to thank our comrades in Phoenix DSA for hosting this amazing candidate forum. So make sure to give them a well-deserved round of applause. Sorry, losing my voice there. For those who don't know me, my name is Austin Binns, and I'm from Philly DSA, and I use he, him, his pronouns. I first joined DSA 7 years ago in November 2016. After Donald Trump got elected. And since joining, I've been active in my local chapter here in Philly. And I'm currently the co-chair of our chapter's Red Rabbits working group, which for those who don't know what Red Rabbits are, we provide marshals for direct actions hosted not only by Philly DSA, but also allied organizations across the city. I've been active not only in my local chapter, but also in the national organization. I was a former member of DSA's National Electoral Committee from 2018 to 2021, where I was the co-chair of our Endorsed Campaign Support Subcommittee. Now, I'm running for the National Political Committee this year on the Anti-Zionist slate alongside my comrades, Catherine and Ahmed. I'm running for NPC because I believe this organization needs leaders who will listen to rank and file members and locals when needed. And we also need leaders who will be principled anti-Zionists and anti-imperialists and will govern our organization with those principles in mind. And finally, we need leaders who, in the words of James Connolly, recognize the perilous times we are facing and will be courageous and not flinch from the coming struggle for socialism. So thank you.
Thank you very much for being here, Austin B. Really appreciate your time, appreciate your input. And we'll move on now to Austin R. From Red Labor. Thank you very much for being here today, Austin R. On deck, we have Laura W.
All right. So my name is Austin Ray Lossinger Egeman. It's a hell of a name. I apologize for that. You'll probably see me online as Austin Ray or Austin Lossinger Egeman. So, but yeah, I'm a member of the Red Labor Caucus. We're heavily concentrated in Idaho, specifically Boise. I'm a member of the Boise local for the DSA. And I joined, I think officially in the end of 2015 or the beginning of 2016. I can't quite remember. And it was really the Bernie Sanders campaign, I would say, like most people here probably, that, got us involved in the DSA. And it was also the Bernie Sanders defeats that I think led me into the Red Labor Caucus, which was, again, pretty big here locally. And specifically the betrayal of the Democratic Party. The question of party independence, electoral independence became a big thing for me. And then that kind of segued into the labor question. And so here in Boise, here in Idaho for the Boise DSA for Red Labor, the labor question is the biggest thing we focus on. We've done united fronts as well in regards to the George Floyd protests here locally with other left groups. But the most of our time is spent entering into the trade unions or unionizing the places that we're at. And specifically, we'll talk about this later. I think it's good the DSA is focusing on the rank and file strategy, but Red Labor really wants to ask some questions about that rank and file strategy, because here locally, we've experienced what it's like to go up against the bureaucracy and to, not only fight the bosses, but fight the trade union bureaucrats and misleaders that oftentimes, are one of the biggest impediments to workers organizing for a better life. So I want to thank Phoenix DSA for putting this on. And again, my name is Austin Ray, Lossinger Egeman, Red Labor Caucus. And I look forward to talking to everybody.
Thank you so much for being here, Austin Ray. I will remember that going forward. My mistake. I appreciate that. Okay, up next we have Laura W. Laura W. is here for Rum. Bread and Roses, thank you so much for being here. And on deck, we have Luisa M.
Hey everyone, my name is Laura Wadlin. I'm an ESL teacher at Portland Community College, and I'm a member of the Marxist Caucus Bread and Roses. I've been a core organizer in DSA since 2018, and last year I was co-chair of Portland DSA, helping lead much of the strike solidarity work that our chapter has done. I'm also a lead steward in my union AFT Local 2277. I'm running on a slate with two other Bread and Roses members, Alex Pelletieri and Kristen Shaw. We believe we must make DSA into a more party-like organization that is member-driven at the national level, champions an independent socialist identity through electoral campaigns, and is rooted in rank-and-file labor organizing. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. I realize I forgot to say this. That's my mistake. Up next is Jesse Dreyer from Reform and Revolution. Thank you very much for being here, Jesse. And on deck is, I said Louisa was up, and that's my mistake. It is actually Jesse. I apologize. I'm getting a little dyslexic with these numbers. Jesse, you're up, then it's Louisa. I apologize.
No problem. There's a whole Portland crew that's just going ... So it's easy to mistake us all. We're a great chapter. My name is Jesse Dreyer. I'm the co-chair of Portland DSA. I use he, him, his pronouns. A member of the Reform and Revolution Caucus and running on that caucus's slate along with Philip Locker. I have been a member of DSA since early 2020. And in those short 3 years that I've been a member, I've helped really kind of like catapult labor work in Portland to a new level. We have the largest collection of DSA Teamsters in any single chapter in the country, and that's mostly due to the kind of relentless recruiting we've done in the past 2 years for the UPS contract campaign. I'm excited to bring an element of rank and file fervor as a member of Teamsters Local 162 to the national debates on some of these questions on labor. I'm also active in the National Labor Committee and helped form the UPS National Network inside of DSA, which went from about 15 members in 2021 to where it is today at about 88 members of people engaged in their local Teamsters unions across the country, fighting for a decent contract at UPS and hopefully potentially organizing for a strike that could happen very shortly. I'll just leave it there. Thank you so much to Phoenix DSA for having me. This is my, I think, second or third time coming to your chapter for events like this. And I always leave, inspired to see that there's so much happening in, the desert. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Jesse. Every time you come, it's an awesome time, and our members love hearing you talk, so we really appreciate you attending. Up next, we do have, this time for real, Luisa, who is an independent member, not running with any specific caucus, and on deck, we have Francis with Groundwork.
Hey, everybody. Greetings from Brazil. I'm still down here. I was part of the delegation that attended Foro Sao Paulo. And so I just took the opportunity to better know Brazil, so I'm still here. So my name is Luisa. I joke around, I'm running on Luisa Slate. It's just me, I'm running as an independent, there's nobody else. I'm currently on the steering committee of the International Committee, but I've also served as my local chapter co-chair, Portland DSA, and as the internal organizing co-chair before that. Just some background about me. I'm a union organizer, and I've helped organize 7 strikes, all of which that have won. I would say I calculated the average increase for workers' salaries was about 12.5% if you average them all out. I've been organizing for about 13 years. It started because excuse me, I was an undocumented immigrant until I was about 21 years old. So I was undocumented for about 16 years. I was born in Latin America. And so and I also grew up below the poverty line for the majority of my life. Now I'm middle class. Before that, I was poor. And I started organizing originally in homeless rights. I moved a lot. I was never homeless. I met the technical definition, but I was never out on the streets. So I moved about 20 times before I was 21 years old. But then after that, I started doing immigrants' rights, labor rights. I served as my CLC secretary at one point, and international solidarity. And I also went on the first very famous DSA delegation to Venezuela. And so I'm running for NPC because aside from having, I feel, a lot of experience as an organizer, DSA is not my first socialist organization that I've worked with or been a member of. I want to make sure that we continue to meet IC convention resolutions that have passed at previous conventions. And more than anything, I don't want to sound too academic here, but I can contribute the experiential knowledge of poverty to our organization's political decisions and direction. I think that's something kind of unique. And then also, being a union organizer, I can understand how the struggle for dignity on the job can unify people across identities and genders and stuff like that. And it was my experience as an undocumented immigrant that kind of gave me that insight. So that's it.
Got to unmute myself. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Appreciate you being here. Up next, we have Francis from Groundwork, and then following her, we will have Rashad X from Marxist Unity Group.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Phoenix DSA, for putting this forum together. This is awesome. And it was exciting to hear about the work that your chapter is doing, especially the strike support work. I'm in Los Angeles DSA, and we've been doing a lot of strike support lately. I don't know if y'all have heard, but it is a red hot labor summer out here for sure. Yeah, so my name's Francis, she, her. I first joined DSA in late 2016, early 2017. I got involved in New Orleans. I was part of like a small crew that joined DSA right around that time, and then got connected and wound up founding the chapter and kind of struggling through all the work of like building a chapter from the ground up and figuring out what that looks like. I was in New Orleans for 5 years and saw the chapter grow a lot, which was incredible. One of the highlights of my time in New Orleans DSA was working on a campaign to stop an effort to defund the public library, which we did wind up winning. So they did not defund the library, which was really fucking cool. And then I wound up moving out to Los Angeles 2 years ago. So I've been in LA DSA for 2 years now. It's been very interesting and informative to have kind of the perspective of a medium-sized chapter and a big city chapter. In LA, I wound up getting involved with some of our electoral work here, doing a lot of door knocking on our city council campaign, which one of our city council campaigns, which we won and elected a socialist, a cadre socialist to the LA City Council, actually a couple of them. And then I also ran for leadership of the Labor Committee. So that's why the strike support is kind of top of mind. Right now I'm the co-chair of the Labor Committee, and we've been doing a ton of strike solidarity stuff. We actually, maybe you've heard, but one of the strikes that's happening is Unite Here Local 11, the hotel and hospitality workers. Yeah, thousands of hotel workers across LA and Orange County who have gone on strike twice in the last 2 weeks. And they did the union organized a historic active civil disobedience a couple weeks ago, and we had 20 DSA members, including myself, get arrested on Century Boulevard outside of LAX. Oh yeah, Phoenix DSA, that's Phoenix is local 11 too, right? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and I'm a healthcare worker, and I'm in a union, so the Committee for Interns and Residents, it's part of SEIU. And I was on the bargaining team of my union when we negotiated our last contract. Came very close to a strike, but wound up not having to go on strike and won big in our contract. And that was also an incredible experience to go from, I was a socialist and then I joined the labor movement, and it was very informative and inspiring and an incredible experience. So yeah, that's me. And should also mention, I'm a member of the Groundwork Slate, and I'm running with 5 other folks. Another comrade from LA, Rose from Maine, Tefa from New York, Ashik, who's an at-large member, and Kara from Louisville. And yeah, so excited to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate that. Up next, we have Rashad X from Marxist Unity Group. And then on deck, we have Aaron B from the Lighthouse Caucus. Rashad, let me unmute you. Very nice.
What's more important, the flower or the soil that grows it? In DSA, we often focus more on the flowers because, as we can see, they're beautiful roses. Roses like electoral wins, roses like our beautiful strike-ready efforts, and roses like our size, with us being the biggest socialist organization in the country. But as a farm worker, I know we can't forget about the soil. Just because a crop grows, that doesn't mean it's growing consistently all season. That doesn't mean it's resilient to outside forces. And that doesn't mean our crop is diverse enough. So as rose producers in DSA, we gotta pay more attention to our soil health, or else our electoral roses will depend on the dangerous fertilizer of the Democratic Party. Our strike-ready roses won't be able to continue their militancy when the state, employer, or union leadership decides to intervene. And our membership roses won't be as multiracial as we need them to be. Good soil health partly means having the right chemistry. It's a 3-element mixture of nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. This is why, as stewards of DSA, the Marxist Unity Group's NPC Slate is focused on 3 elements of DSA's political chemistry. The political infrastructure to produce electeds that follow our anti-imperialist platform consistently and unapologetically. The political clarity that our labor work is a part of our revolutionary battle for democracy, and the political commitment to building a multiracial mass political party independent from all capitalist influences.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Up next, we have Aaron B from the Lighthouse Caucus, and then we will be moving on to our first question segment, which will be led off by Austin B from, excuse me, I have this online, from the Anti-Zionist Slate. And you're right on the screen too. I don't know why I didn't say that. Okay. Anyway, sorry. I'm going to unmute Aaron.
Hello, my name is Aaron Berger. I go by he, him pronouns. I joined DSA in 2018. I'm a member of Maine DSA, and I live in Portland, Maine, a small city of 68,000, though the first Portland. Since joining DSA, I've helped pass laws that gave me and thousands of others hazard pay and rent control. I was able to organize my dead-end job into a union with the help of UAW 2110. I ran logistics for a ballot question campaign for Maine Public Power that gathered over 80,000 signatures across our state to qualify for the ballot. I could not have done any of this without DSA. I have found being an organized socialist to be incredibly transformative. I'm running for NPC so I can help members and chapters across the country realize that transformative power. What is necessary to unlock that transformative power, to me, means we can't be fearful about talking about our weaknesses. We have to be upfront about it and confront it, but we also can't treat each other as disposable. We came together in very unusual situations, and we shouldn't treat this as something that can just reoccur very easily, and we should treasure the opportunities we have to organize together. I hope to have national connect more directly with chapters, because I think that's the only way national is going to be stronger, is through that closer connection. And I really want DSA to be organizing for the long haul. I think that means building working class institutions, but it's also civic institutions. The really free market sounds like a great example of not necessarily something centered on class contradiction, but something that is just about putting down roots, staying place, and really sort of, dare I say, building power. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate that. And I want to say also, I appreciate all of you for being so efficient with those introductions. That means we get to bump our responses up to 2.5 minutes per. So up first, we are asking the question, what is DSA doing right? What is DSA doing right? In 2.5 minutes, the first responder is going to be Austin Benz from the Anti-Zionist Slate. And on deck, we will have Austin Ray from Red Labor. Thank you very much. Austin Benz, you are up.
Thank you. So I know we only have 2.5 minutes, so I can't touch on all the great examples of the work that DSA is doing right. I know other candidates will hit other different types of work, but I'll pick 2 that are really inspiring to me personally. One example of something like the amazing socialist organizing DSA is doing right now is being run by chapters across the country with the support and mentorship of the BDS and Palestine Solidarity Working Group. In the past few months, the working group has been running a No Appetite for Apartheid campaign, which seeks to convince stores and businesses to not sell goods from Israel or the occupied West Bank. Now, what's inspiring in this campaign is this campaign has been successful in creating over 50 apartheid-free zones across the country, with 40 of them being created by our comrades in Tampa DSA alone, which is amazing. And the reason I wanted to highlight this campaign in particular is because I believe this serves as a model for the way our anti-Zionist slate wants DSA's national work to be organized. Instead of having a model that focuses our resources and energies into big national legislative campaigns that can, quote unquote, unite DSA and supposedly give chapters a campaign in a box they can plug into, our national committees and working groups should instead be taking a position of mentoring chapters and developing their own campaigns that actually make a difference in their own communities and are actually based in their own material conditions. Another example of socialist organizing that comes to mind include my own chapter's abortion defense working group. Our working group for the last year since the Dobbs decision came out has been running an abortion clinic defense campaign for the last year that has seen a lot of successes in combating the presence of Christian fascists and other anti-abortion organizers, from harassing clinic workers and intimidating folks seeking essential health care like abortions. Just last month, our abortion rights working group formed a coalition that planned a massive counter demo to Philly's annual March for Life that regularly forces the abortion clinics we defend to shut down for the day. Our counter demo was so large, we outnumbered the fascists and kept the promise to always fight to keep the clinics open. During the entire time, our chapter's Red Rabbits working group formed a bike barrier between our demo and the police and kept our comrades safe from arrest because fuck the police, they're not on our side. And those are just 2 campaigns out of many that I believe DSA is doing right at this moment.
Thank you very much, Austin. I appreciate that. Up next, we have Austin Ray from Red Labor, and on deck, we have Laura W. from Bread and Roses. Ray, there we go.
Thank you. So in regards to what DSA is doing right, I can think of some things locally that stuck out to me. And specifically in regards to the BLM protests. And I remember that we had a BLM Boise chapter here that, as you can imagine, I live in the state of Idaho, definitely faced a lot of resistance and harassment in their organizing campaigns. And DSA and its membership, and obviously the Red Labor members in DSA, showed up there, and we tried our best to work with them and maintain the security and integrity of the event. And we actually had like security patrols, and we would go around and we coordinated, keeping an eye on potential threats and trying to protect ourselves. Because here in Idaho, I know this is the case everywhere, but the police, you know, like they're vicious. And there was many instances myself where I saw a DSA member, I believe, get hit. And after they were hit by, I think it was a Trump supporter or someone who was a counter protester, you know, I had to escort them away, and I kind of talked to them about some things, and you know, their fire didn't die. You know, they were pretty upset about the whole thing. And so there's been a lot of resilience, especially in a red state, of DSA members who really believe in the project. Outside of that, you know, I think our labor work in the DSA is good. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. And I think as someone running for the NPC, I would try to center that. My experience in the trade unions, my experience fighting against my own union leadership, you know, when they coordinated with management to cover up wage theft that was going on. I work at the Boise airport, and I don't know if there's legal ramifications of me going into too much detail. But yeah, I mean, I used to work for American Airlines, and I worked for a company called Piedmont, which was a subsidiary. And you know, like the union leadership there, you know, when potential wage theft was going on, they coordinated with management to shut down myself and another Red Labor comrade that was, you know, trying to spread awareness about that and fight for something to be done. And, you know, the DSA just doesn't have the infrastructure, I think, to answer those contradictions. So I would hope that, you know, in regards to the good work we're doing for unions, showing up on the picket line, doing mutual aid, showing support, that we would take a more conscious intervention into the trade union movement and do a real rank and file strategy.
Thank you very much, Austin Ray. Really appreciate that. Up next, we have Laura W. from Bread and Roses, and on deck, we have Jesse D. from Reform and Revolution. Laura, take it away.
DSA is a very special organization and is doing a lot of things right, and that gives me a lot of hope. That's why I'm spending so much of my time in DSA. At the local level, we're very member driven. Members have an incredible level of autonomy over the work we do. If you want your chapter to do something, you basically just need to take initiative and convince your fellow members to spend time and resources on it. That's great. At the national level, it's great that our focus is on running socialists for office and labor organizing. That doesn't have to be absolutely the only thing we do, but those are our top priorities. And it wasn't always a consensus view in DSA that spending resources on rank and file union power was of utmost importance, but I think it is now. We still need a lot more resources going towards labor organizing, but it's good to see so many people on the same page that after the era of Bernie, we need to double down on bottom-up workplace power. And that means both embedding ourselves as shop floor organizers, as union members, not just staffers, as well as running community solidarity campaigns like we're doing with the UPS Strike Ready campaign. And another great thing about DSA is that we have strong caucuses. Look at this list of speakers on this panel. We have so many strong, active ideological caucuses. And that is a wonderful development since DSA exploded in membership 7 years ago. Oh my God, I can't believe it's been that long. Caucuses help us navigate the contradictions of being in a big tent organization, which we want to support. And they force us to engage in discourse in a principled and comradely way, and in a way that politicizes rather than personalizes conflict.
Thank you very much, Laura. Up next, we have Jesse Dreyer from Reform Revolution, and then on deck, we have Luisa from the Louisa Slate.
So what is DSA doing right? I don't mean to utilize my first question to draw a distinction, but I really appreciated hearing Austin Binns's perspective on like these plug and play national campaigns. I think that in some cases they are not helpful. I think that the PROACT campaign wasn't as helpful, but I think there are two examples of plug and play national campaigns that have been extremely helpful for DSA across the board, which is the Strike Ready campaign, which we're currently engaged in because there is a UPS shop pretty much within direct proximity of any DSA chapter in the country, and the Starbucks Workers United campaign, the Solidarity is Brewing campaign, given that we have an opportunity to really elevate so many young people that are entering into the workplace for the first time, and probably the worst time to enter a service economy job, coming into the pandemic and, in this period of intermediary pandemic that we still rely on. I think that it's important that DSA still engages in that way in trying to find opportunities for chapters that do not have that kind of political coherence in their infancy to find something that they can do. Sometimes there is not necessarily the immediate local campaign that is something that they can just plug into. But with those national campaigns, I think that's one thing that DSA does right, and I think we should do more of. Other things I think DSA is doing right is just generally, orienting to labor in this, upsurge. I think that it's incredibly important that we're, engaging with our rank and file strategy in the way that we have been. I think that I agree with Austin Ray. There are ways to definitely improve that and gain more clarity in how we actually orient to the rank and file. I think that local examples like that include, our Nabisco campaign in Portland. We had a disagreement between our local bargaining unit and our national negotiating team at BCTGM, where the local BCTGM was opposed to the contract that was coming in, and the national was advocating for a yes vote. And we took the initiative from the rank and file of that specific campaign to elevate their appeal to other workers in the national bargaining, in other units across the country in Chicago, Richmond, and Atlanta to also vote no. That contract was implemented, but there were 200 no votes, and there were 200 workers at the Portland Nabisco factory. So that is one way that we can help elevate those rank and filers' perspective using our national organization to signal boost that kind of a message. And the other one is on the rank and file strategy. We had a very interesting kind of pre-strike contract campaign situation with city workers, where we made a large connection with a local AFSCME branch that AFSCME branches are organized locally and then also regionally. I have 20 seconds. I should be really fast about this. The regional AFSCME branch tried to intervene in our efforts of doing solidarity work, but we still won elements of those rank and filers over to the DSA perspective of putting on a vigorous contract campaign and recruited several of those to DSA. And that is one of the things that DSA is doing great.
That was amazing. Thank you very much for getting through that. I really appreciate you. Up next, we have Luisa, and then following Luisa, we have Francis from Groundwork.
Hey guys. So yeah, I agree with what a lot of people said. DSA is doing a lot of things right. Like I said before, it's not my first socialist organization that I've worked with, so I feel like I have broader view of what the young US left looks like. And I believe DSA can win, or else I wouldn't spend all my free time as a childless millennial doing DSA work. So one of the things I'll say that we're doing right, I appreciate our organizational commitment to electoral politics. It really helps with visibility. I remember attending Portland DSA's local chapter meeting after AOC got elected, and it was like wall to wall. It was the most I'd ever seen at a chapter meeting. And so thanks to the delegation of Venezuela, the first one really helped concretize this idea that electoral politics can be a site for class struggle, but it can't be the only thing, right? It can't be the only thing that we do, and it certainly can't be to the detriment of the rest of the organization. Another thing that we really do well is radicalizing people from liberal impulses, right? Nobody is born, I mean, maybe if your parents are socialists or whatever, but like most people are not born perfect socialists, right? And so I think DSA does a good job of, at least starting to unpack the baggage that we carry from living in the United States, right? The hegemony kind of constantly banging on our heads. We do this mostly through political education and actions, right? Sometimes it's through infighting, admittedly, but nevertheless, even when that happens, people develop political lines as a result, right? I think Cuba and the Venezuela work that we've done is a great example of what we're doing right, with the international work and educating people in terms of what's going on in the rest of the global South. And lastly, I would say, and people, I feel like, they're kind of on the fence about this, but we look good. Like DSA looks professional, right? The aesthetic is strong. And I know that's a criticism, but the thing is, it's important that we look serious, A, and then B, I don't know if anybody's had this experience where like you get a flyer from some organization, some coalition somewhere, and then you go to their website and it looks like they made it on GeoCities, or like it looks like a Craigslist website, you know what I'm talking about? And so I've never had that with DSA. We've always looked really good. And I do think that's important for us to look like we're serious.
Thank you very much, Louisa. Up next, we have Francis from Groundwork, and then following Francis, we will have Rashad X from Marxist Unity Group.
I love that, Louisa. We do. We look good. We look fucking serious. What is DSA doing right? I feel like there really is so much to point to. I think one thing that brings the Groundwork Slate members together is that we really, I think the kind of early first thing that we all agreed on was like, we believe in DSA. Like we believe in DSA as like the political tool that the working class needs, that we need to bring, liberation to working people. And I think that's something that like really united us and has been kind of a core part of how we like talked about our platform and what we wanted to name ourselves and all that kind of stuff. I also wanted to, someone in the chat mentioned brake lights. Like, I think that kind of, I was in New Orleans DSA and was helped to organize that first brake light clinic that took off, all across the country, across DSA chapters. And I remember when the idea was first brought up in a meeting, and it was just so creative and unique and seems like fun, and also like something that we could do. And I think that type of just creativity and spontaneity and the willingness to like roll up our sleeves and figure out how to do something that we've never done before is a huge strength of DSA's. I also want to echo, I think Laura mentioned like the big tent aspect of DSA, the multiple political ideologies and political perspectives all working together to kind of form this mass membership organization, I think is a huge strength. And a core part of that is the democratic decision making within our organization. I know for me, when I first got involved in DSA, I did not know what I was getting into. I thought maybe I was going to meet some people who might want to like do a reading group or something. I had no idea that I was going to get involved in this like lifelong org building project and spend all these hours of my free time like working on it. But what really was transformative for me in that moment, and what I think is transformative for a lot of people, is the experience of being part of a democratic collective, and making decisions together and working together. There's so many ways in our lives that we are powerless, that we're alienated, that we're isolated. And, you come in, you step into this space, and for a lot of people, like if you're not in a labor union, if you don't have like a community group you're already organizing with, it's very new and very exciting, and speaks to kind of this something deep within us of the need for like social connection, and that just like working together on something like that really was transformative for me. Some like just concrete things that I think are wonderful about DSA, the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee. In LA, we have labor circles, which are like industry specific ways of organizing. And I think I'm about to run out of time, so I will stop, but so much to say.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Very nice. Up next, we have Rashad X from Marxist Unity Group, and then following Rashad, we will have Aaron B from the Lighthouse Caucus. Rashad, you are up.
DSA's labor work is popping off. Amazingly, it reaches all different types of workers in DSA. Workers who can commit to long-term organizing at strategic sites of struggle can support our rank and file strategy. Workers who aren't looking to change jobs but want to organize where they are can get support from EWOC like I did last year. And workers who aren't focused on organizing at work right now can still be plugged into our strike-ready efforts. And we can boost our labor work by building unity around a shared purpose. Is the purpose to win material gains now? Absolutely. So much so that I'd argue our labor work has been even more successful at that than our electoral and policy work has been. Is the purpose to build the core of an independent party? Absolutely. So much so that we can learn from comrades in places like Bolivia that have done it. But the Marxist Unity Group Slate thinks there is more to our shared purpose. We need to have clarity that one of our top purposes in labor work is to prepare the working class to take political power and establish a democratic socialist republic. From fighting for democratic Republican practices within unions to prepping for future militant street action through strikes. Our labor work needs to be connected to the goal of establishing a democratic socialist republic because we gotta learn from the failed British Labour Party that reforming an anti-democratic state can never work. And we gotta learn from the imperialist and racist past of too many US unions that our struggle is not limited to specific workplaces. With the horizon of a democratic socialist republic, our socialist workers movement has the pathway to begin making the slogan, "Workers of the world unite," a beautiful reality.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have Aaron B from the Lighthouse Caucus, and following Aaron, we will have Rael from Emerge. Thank you very much. Aaron, you are up.
I'm so excited to have Rashad right before me. He always gets me like hyped up and I'm just like ready to go. I think DSA has the best organizers, like hands down, produces some of the best organizers. And I think it's because we have such a low barrier of entry. A lot of people come in here with no professional background and they learn on the job. They're learning from their experience because we do a lot of stuff. We're not really reading, we're just doing and learning and reflecting. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about DSA. Oftentimes, just from the simple fact that we know Robert's rules, we can enter many civic institutions and take positions. Many appointed boards or just like on the wane fraternities, you can just slide in because you know simple ways of how like institutions function. And as we interact with the old institutions, it has a radicalizing effect. As you realize how much the state is stacked against you, as you realize how much a boss really actually hates you the moment you bring up the idea of like cost of living adjustments or something, there is like a cumulative effect that you're like, man, I thought it was bad, but it's actually like way worse than I thought it was. And I think that's a powerful thing that DSA is bringing to many members across the country. I also think it's why it's sort of important to try to get chapters, this engine of radicalization going, because I think some of the most exciting activities that chapters do are once they have gotten past the first 1 or 2 years. We're 7 years into this new DSA, and there's a lot of exciting things going on. There are also some chapters I feel like that haven't gotten started, and I'm really excited to see what they end up doing once they get the support and attention that lets them really start to rev that engine. And I think putting down roots in the local area is where we're going to build the most power. And I think finally, one of the last things that DSA does really well is if you move to another city, hooking up with your DSA chapter is like the #1 way to find out where you're at and what's going on. And that is a great thing to be contributing to, and makes me all very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Again, thank you all for being here. Love this community. Up next, we have Rael from Emerge, and then on deck, we have C.S. Jackson from the Libertarian Socialist Caucus.
Is it me or Are you trying to get me or Rael?
Rael, that's my mistake. There you are. I lost track of the faces.
Thank you. I'm great comrades with Jorge, so very happy to be an honorary member of Emerge.
I apologize. So,
No worries, man. No worries.
Rael, I was on a roll. I had it for a second there. So sorry. Rael, Socialist Majority Caucus. Jorge is not up yet.
Well, thank you anyways. Comrades, our electoral and our labor work represent some of the most successful socialist organizing in the United States in over a century. In the electoral arena, we've elected over 200 socialists to positions from school boards to members of Congress. We played a key role, pivotal role, in passing instrumental legislation in state houses and local legislatures across the country, helping hundreds of thousands of people with their material conditions. In the labor arena, thousands of our members are members of unions and form part of their rank and file caucuses within their unions, ultimately pushing unions to the left. Our members lead projects like EWOC with new organizing, which is especially important with how just pro-union Gen Z is. There's one of the most pro-union generations in any lifetime. Our legislators push pro-union legislature in all states across the United States. Overall, I think the one thing that we do right, regardless of campaigns, regardless of what exactly we're doing, regardless of if it's mutual aid, labor, electoral, legislative, any priority campaign, is that we're able to mobilize hundreds of volunteers and organizers to fight any fight that we undertake. And honestly, I think that's one of the most important things that DSA does right.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Up next, we have C.S. Jackson from the Libertarian Socialist Caucus, followed by Megan R. from Red Star.
Yeah, thanks to our host for trying to keep everything straight. The Big Tent is one of DSA's greatest strengths. As you can see from this panel, members are invested trying to find resolutions to the contradictions racking the org. Specifically, resolutions like the National Delegates Council would increase democracy and accountability in the org, while the Towards, a part of that structure, would set expectations for socialists in office. And Austin Binns stole a lot of my thunder about the different examples of chapters making impacts all over the country. But I do want to highlight that, with mega fire season approaching, not only in the West, but also in the Northeast now, DSA chapters are in action, giving out masks and trying to keep people healthy and safe. We can continue to build on these successes, but only if we create a culture of trust and face the questions and crises that we are in head on. The nature of the Big Tent is the key to remaining adaptable and flexible at every crossroads. There will always be more crises, and we must be ready for them. And we can do that together. And I see the rest of my time.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Up next, we have Megan R. from Red Star, and then on deck is Jorge from Emerge. I am sorry, Jorge. This time, we're doing it for real. Okay, Megan R., you are up. Here is the unmute button. There it is.
All right. Hard to go, like 11th or something after all these great things have been said. There is a lot of great work happening in DSA. I am going to just pull out one thing that hasn't been mentioned. I think DSA is a place where a dedicated group of comrades can really come together and change things in a very fast and efficient way. And I think we've seen that significantly in the Housing Justice Commission over the last couple of years. It was a relatively sort of academic, somewhat sclerotic national commission, not for anybody's lack of trying. It just, it's hard. You only can prioritize so many things. But a group of comrades said, DSA wants to do housing justice work. This is an area in which we can kind of own the space. We don't have to necessarily share it with other parties or other organizations. We can really kind of jump in and move some action, right? Move the needle. And so they did that, and they ran for HJC and they just did a ton of work. And now HJC rocks, and housing is, last I heard, a thing that more chapters are doing than almost anything. It's a major focus at the chapter level. People are doing tenants unions, people are doing housing, like electoral campaigns, like ballot measure type things. Yeah, just across the board, really exciting stuff happening in the housing terrain. But what's exciting is that a bunch of comrades said, we want this to be a thing that DSA does. And they got together and they made it happen, and they can make it happen in DSA. This is a place where if you are dedicated to a cause, you can make it happen.
Completely agree. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Up next, we have Jorge from Emerge. And then next, we'll move on to question number 2, which is, what is DSA doing wrong? And we will start question number 2 with Laura W. from Bread and Roses. But up now is Jorge from Emerge for what is DSA, to close out, what is DSA doing right?
Thank you so much. Yeah, when you said Rael from Emerge, this is news to me. But totally understandable. Really great things everyone's been saying. In my opinion, there are 4 major strategies DSA is doing correctly. First being, we have to address is electoral. If one were to account for the amount of resources available to DSA, whether they be financial, labor, knowledge, without a doubt, in my opinion, the national electoral strategy has been the most successful strategy in electing socialists to office in the United States in a century. If the goal is to continue electing socialists into office, then we must have an effective strategy and must allow it to run its course. Second, addressing our strategy with respect to labor unions, DSA has done an incredible job with its rank and file strategy, in which we deepen our commitment to that. The strategy has demonstrated itself to be an effective way to challenge the entrenched union bureaucracy and politicize many of the existing labor unions in this country. I hear people who are saying it's very difficult to try to contest power from people from entrenched leadership, but we have to do, as Jane McLevy said, there are no shortcuts to organizing. We must continue doing the work that we've been doing with that. Furthermore, people mentioned EWOC, the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee. We must continue to pay attention. All of us must be paying attention to the incredible work that's happened with that. The shining example of the massive opportunity available to and all of us as workers by in terms of being creating something like EWOC and participating with militant labor unions. And further thing in terms of the rank and file strategy, the Teamsters right now, people we're talking about that the only way that we're at the precipice of a strike. Yesterday I was at a practice picket where Sean O'Brien, the president of the Teamsters, spoke, and he said that it's up to UPS whether or not there's a strike. And the only way that the Teamsters have gone to this point is by 40 years of dedicated rank and file organizing. The third thing I want to point to is the incredible work that's been done in terms of the campaign work in a more broader sense. Here in New York City, the Build Public Renewables Act is an enormous success in terms of passing. It is the first major win towards a Green New Deal in this country. It required lobbying, canvassing, primarying people who later became sponsor of the bill that passed, propaganda, direct action. Many people who got arrested, are elected here, got arrested by police in terms of direct action that they participated in. And fourth, everyone's been talking about it. Internationalism has been an incredible success in DSA. We have a relationship with left-wing parties all around the world, particularly those who are in power, who are learning how to govern, how to build socialism. We should learn from those who are in the process of trying to build a new society. And we are meeting with world leaders. Lisa, who was on the delegation that met with Nicolas Maduro. We are part of international organizations like the Foro de Sao Paulo Forum, and we're doing international diplomacy, connecting left-wing parties around with each other. And DSA is an instrumental part of that. And this is just the beginning.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Appreciate that response. Appreciate all of your responses to that. Completely agree, and I'm very encouraged by everything that DSA is doing right. With that, let's move on to question 2. What is DSA doing wrong? And we are going to start with Laura from Bread and Roses, and up after Laura on deck will be Jesse from Reform and Revolution.
The most urgent problem in DSA is that even our highest elected political body, the NPC, has trouble carrying out the will of members and having a political impact. Many important decisions are actually made by senior staff and completely insulated from NPC oversight. And a lot of the essential information NPC members need is not at all transparent or accessible. When senior staff make decisions in isolation of our political leadership, they tend to pursue less ambitious goals rather than carrying out what we have decided democratically. So for instance, it took 5 years for us to get even one labor staffer after we passed a resolution to do so at the 2017 convention. That's unacceptable. Think how much better prepared we'd be for the UPS strike right now if we'd had a labor staffer 5 years earlier. I don't want DSA to operate like a nonprofit board. I don't want to be a monthly contributor to the ACLU or a volunteer for Move On. I want to be a democratic member of the largest socialist organization in the country. DSA is also lacking political development among our new members. Compare DSA to YDSA. They're growing, we're shrinking. How is that possible when there's so much turnover on college campus groups? Because they invest in political development, not just training people in organizing best practices, which of course is important too. Some people argue that political education is too off-putting for new members, but we've seen that learning about socialist and labor history and leftist parties around the world keeps people motivated to be an organizer in the movement for a lifetime. We also have a somewhat confused electoral strategy. Why do we run socialists for office at all? Is it to legislate and build our policy resume for institutional legitimacy through relationships with insiders? Or is it to be champions for an alternative to the neoliberal establishment, to use our platform to raise consciousness and to build independent working class organization? I say it's sort of both, but primarily the latter. And we need to make that clear from the start when we run and endorse candidates for office.
Thank you very much, Laura. I really appreciate that. Up next, we have Jesse from Reform and Revolution. Following Jesse, we will have Luisa from the Luisa Slate. I'm going to keep saying it. You said it, I get to keep saying it. Okay, Jesse, you're up.
To run on the Jesse slate. Anyway, I agree with a lot of what Laura has said. I actually think that it is a core weakness of ours that we don't encourage broader political education in a lot of ways. Too many times I've sent some text to people, and they've sent me back the Twitter meme. I ain't reading all that. Happy for you, or I'm sorry about that. But it's important to really present ourselves as students of the movement, not just mere functionaries of it. I agree with the sentiment that there is a lot of it's not just a problem of bad leadership, not just in the socialist movement, but in the labor movement. As Ken Paff, Teamsters for Democratic Union organizers, would said, it's the fact that there's not enough leaders and there's not enough avenue to bring people up into the ranks of leadership. Too often people think that they can do everything themselves or delegate everything. And we need to have a more collaborative approach that starts at the leadership level, in order to basically create a new generation of socialist organizers and activists that can create the movement, the organization that we need to actually take capitalism to the final hilt and not merely become, the most smart and savvy managers of it once we achieve power. In that sense, we have seen a lot of weaknesses in DSA's electoral representation on very core issues that we, hold dear. The railway strike, with our 3 electeds in Congress, Iron Dome funding, military budgets approved, etc. We need to definitely be doing a better job of politically educating the people that we choose to represent us in that sense of why it's important to take a principled line on some of these immense issues. Sure, like Luisa said, the fact that we have become so serious internationally based on, having people in Congress, having smart designs, etc. that is important, but it is also surface level, and we need to deepen the understanding that our electeds have on specific core issues, like on labor and like on internationalism, where they're not funding NATO, where they're not breaking railway strikes. These are important ways where DSA can improve. In that sense, I think that, you know, we need to create a culture in DSA that allows people with those specific understandings and skills to rise up in our organization. I think that we've seen time and time again where committees have been, you know, either sectioned off for people with specific perspectives and not allowed to have a gross, a broad perspective brought into it. I think that, you know, sometimes we don't even fund some of those committees. Like, I think that the National Tech Committee had a big kerfuffle about this recently, that I think is an important thing to rectify. We need to allow our members to step forward into leadership and not just tell them, you know, hey, just keep doing what you're doing at the local level. We need that experience across the board. I'm hopeful that, you know, if I'm on the NPC, I can invite as many people to participate in our organization in any facet that they would like, whether that be on NHGO, NTC, NLC, NEC, NPEC, etc. ETC, EWOC. Sorry, I had to get some more acronyms out. I'll check there.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Appreciate that. Up next, we have Luisa, and following Luisa, we have Francis from Groundwork. Luisa, let me unmute you.
Okay. Hey, everybody. So in terms of what DSA is doing wrong, for me, it's clear that we have not built a culture of proletarian debate, partly because we don't have a strong understanding of how class influences our behavior collectively as an organization. Again, I kind of, for me, I see it pretty clearly as somebody who grew up poor. You know, my lens is always through class. It's through race and class, right? But in relationship to this question, you know, our organization really hasn't approached the class question, and the fact that, you know, most people in DSA did grow up middle class, because I rarely hear about like our need, for instance, to recruit more poor people, right? So part of it is the middle class influence. The other part of it is that, you know, we're young, we're a youth led. I mean, when I speak on behalf of DSA, make it clear, we always make it clear to say, like, it's a youth led organization. Also, technically, in the at least in Latin America, the technical definition of somebody who's like youth is 35 and under. So just throwing that out there. But age matters when it comes to things like conflict resolution, right? And people's understanding of, like, you know, they have this like kind of social media based notions of communications, right? So not having the culture of proletarian debate that facilitates the conflict resolution that's necessary for an organization this big. And so the question becomes, like, how do you navigate human rights and our understanding of how we define human dignity when the source of outrage is kind of middle class entitlement? And that's not even like a bad thing. So like, for instance, if you grew up middle class and you had, like, you know, a house and a car and health insurance, you're going to expect those things. You're going to be pissed when you get to be an adult and you don't have those things available to you, right? I read on, like, somebody told me, because I'm not on Twitter much, but somebody told me they read on Twitter much that, like, DSA members are the downwardly mobile children of the professional managerial class. I think it's a little bit harsh, but I will say that it's true to say that, like, as an organization, we know loss, but we don't really know gain, right? And because we don't know gain, we have a detachment from socialist parties in the rest of the world, and particularly in the global South, and particularly socialist parties that have won, right, and mass movements that have won. And we don't have kind of this knowledge of how socialist movements have improved the lives of poor people, because most of us didn't start out poor. And so we don't have this kind of a relationship, when we don't have this kind of experience that helps us understand what helps us win, right? How we engage with the working class, right? In particular, what I'm concerned is, how do we appeal to poor people, right? How do we understand how to materially help poor people? That's it.
Thank you very much, Luisa. Up next we have, I can read, Francis from Groundwork. And following Francis, we have Rashad X from Marxist Unity Group. Francis, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, you know, one of the many tragedies of capitalism is the just incredible waste of human potential and talent. You know, so many people who like just don't get the opportunities and the chance to live up to what they're fully capable of. And I think that in DSA we do have a version of that problem. Like there's so much talent and skill and potential and brilliance and creativity in our membership that doesn't get activated and brought into the organization in a systematic and in a way that it's as powerful as it can be. I feel like we need to do a much better job of welcoming and onboarding new members and retaining leaders, recruiting new leaders, developing leaders. I do think that one thing that DSA is good at, and I guess I'm getting a little bit to the first question, but one thing that DSA is good at is taking kind of bold and risky stances. Like today I wore my t-shirt for the Markey Green campaign for agriculture commissioner in Louisiana, which was like a total long shot campaign. But I think that like we jumped into it with our full hearts, and it was like we lost, but it was a powerful experience. You know, she won like 250,000 votes as running as an open socialist in like red Louisiana. And I think, but I do look back at that campaign and I see so much more opportunity for development and for like retaining more skills within the chapter, and for like really absorbing the lessons of that campaign in a sustained way. And I feel like that is something that we could improve a lot on within DSA, is like our membership development, retaining the brilliance and the creativity and the power of our members, leaning on the membership, you know. And I think there's a lot that we can do to kind of improve on that front. And then I think I have a little bit of time left. So the other thing that I want to mention is like, I think our relationship with electeds was brought up before. And I think that we have something, hundreds of DSA electeds that have taken office across the country, but our levels of organizational relationship between DSA and the elected's office are really widely varying. And I think that creates like a lot of contradictions that we're kind of constantly having to navigate, and we're not in sync the way that like we would ideally want a political party or a party surrogate to really be with our elected candidates or electeds. So I think there's a lot of work to build like org to office relationships, where the elected is meeting with the membership frequently and having like big town halls, and where we can ask questions and hear how things are going in office and like relay our concerns and that kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of experimentation happening with that. I know we're doing it in LA, and so I'm excited to see what we can do with it. But I think those are two areas that we can definitely improve on.
Thank you very much, Francis. With that, we're going to move to Rashad X from Marxist Unity Group, and following Rashad, we will have Aaron B from Lighthouse. Rashad, take it away.
Our electoral infrastructure doesn't produce enough DSA endorsed electeds that are consistently and unapologetically following our anti-imperialist platform. To be clear, I'm not saying that our electeds never follow our anti-imperialist platform. Just this past week, they were some of the loudest voices in publicly voting down a record-breaking military budget. So we need to figure out how to make that the norm by publicly voting down every military budget, every CIA bill, and all bills powering the repressive police state, primarily targeting poor and racialized workers, along with left forces here and across the world. And we understand that imperialist police state doesn't just turn globally, but is also inward. So that means at the local level, state level, voting down all police spending, like our socialist electeds out in LA should have done. Additionally, we need to figure out how to make their support for DSA's anti-imperialist platform unapologetic. We've seen how powerful it is to have them unequivocally by our side in our strike-ready efforts. So we need to see that energy being extended to the first line of the anti-war movement, for example, something that I'm very confident our international committee is going to continue to play a role in building out here. Addressing these challenges will require leadership from the NPC. This is why I'm a proud co-signer of the NPC Pledge, alongside Aaron, CS, Luisa, Laura, Jesse, Jorge, and Megan. Special shout out to Megan for drafting, revising, and collecting signatures for this very necessary pledge. As us signatories commit to a basic set of leadership principles, despite our political differences, 3 pledges will help us ensure all electeds follow our anti-imperialist platform consistently and unapologetically. A, Pledge 1, ensuring that our media platforms are agitational, which will help ensure that our independent anti-imperialist message can be spread accessibly to the working class masses. Pledge 2, rebuilding connections to our elected officials at all levels, which will help us provide proactive anti-imperialist expectations. And Pledge 9, closing our budget deficit. This puts us in a position to build a war chest and show these electeds just how much they don't need the Democratic Party's resources, creating the conditions for them to feel even more comfortable as they follow our anti-imperialist platform consistently and unapologetically.
Thank you very much, Rashad. Up next, we have Aaron B. from the Lighthouse Caucus. Following Aaron, we have Rael from Socialist Majority Caucus. Aaron, you are up.
So I don't know if this is something we did wrong, but it's the thing that's most wrong with the org, maybe, is that we still have not figured out how to fill that Bernie Sanders hole that we were left with in 2020. A lot of the unity we felt during the Trump years was that there was a clear plan. We were heading to 2020. We did not know what that year contained, but we were building chapters for 2020. That year was insane. That year had so much stuff going on it. And since then, it seems that we have been unable to look to the future. I deeply appreciate all the electoral work that goes on in DSA. I have no idea what it's going to. Is the idea that we wait for some other sort of messiah figure to run for president and we rally around them? Or is the idea that it's a 20-year plan and we need to get certain majorities on certain state legislations to do some sort of maneuver? There's a hole there. I think staff have been maybe bureaucratic hurdles, but there was also like a decaucusing. People were demobilized just in general within DSA. There were less caucuses, and now that's, I think we're coming back. The high tide's coming in, but like it was everyone kind of like lost their footing for a bit, and I think one of the reasons we're so focused on like candidate accountability is we want to really make sure we get to the destination we're going. And so we want to make sure our candidates are the most fit for that destination. But I think it might be more fruitful to talk about where we're going. I know, yes, a democratic socialist revolution, but like, what is the path? What is the plan? Is it a 5-10-year plan? What are we doing? I think there's a really interesting discussion to have about what do we see the path forward for DSA other than like slow accumulation of seats over time leading to something. We no longer have a figurehead to hold national together, but we have amazing organizers who I think want to talk about this, but haven't really found out the way to do it. Convention is not, it's not the venue. We're not going to break that down in a weekend. I'm not even sure that the platform is the correct place to figure it out. But we need to figure out where are we going? And that I think will solve a lot of the tensions that we're having right now. Yeah, I went over time, sorry.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have Rael from Socialist Majority Caucus. Following Rael, we have CS Jackson from the Libertarian Socialist Caucus.
Thank you. I don't know if wrong is the best way to put it, but it's definitely something that we have to do as an organization. I think 3 things kind of come to mind when I'm answering this question. Membership retention, disengagement between chapters and proximity, and internal deliberations being made public. With regards to membership retention, I think that a lot has been made about the membership crisis in DSA, but I legitimately think that it is an issue of lackluster mechanisms for notifying and re-upping members who have lapsed. Here in New York City, we did a membership drive where we re-upped 400 members, and I was a part of it. And 90% of people was like, oh, I forgot how to up I had to up my dues. So we have to push chapters to do yearly membership drives. Obviously, the national organization should help with that and give resources for that, and create mechanisms nationally to notify members before they lapse. So we kind of nip that in the bud. With the disengagement between chapters and proximity, this is a big thing because sometimes it feels that individual chapters are their own organizations. And it leads to chapters running similar campaigns, but without any collaboration when they could be doing something that is a little bit more regional. For this, I think that we need to push for statewide organizations that can share resources and know-how and just coordinate between the chapters. And we also need clear priorities from the national organization. Now, what I am saying is not that the national organization should throw a line and we should all follow it. Of course, we should respect the ability of chapters to experiment with tactics and strategy, but we do need a clear plan. Lastly, internal deliberation being made public. A lot can be said about this, but the big thing that I think we should keep in mind is that the growth of fascism, or the development of fascism, the consolidation of fascism in the US, brings very unique brings really unique obstacles for us. And something that we have to internalize is that fascists are listening to everything that we do. They're listening to every move we make. They're seeing every move that we make. And we can't make it easier for them to understand our internal cleavages, what breaks us apart, and our internal deliberations. We have to ultimately remain united as an organization, regardless of our political affiliations, caucuses, or orientations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rael. Up next, we have C.S. Jackson from the Libertarian Socialist Caucus. Following Rael, we have Megan from following C.S. Jackson, we have Megan from Red Star. That was just a little one. That doesn't count. I'm still on a roll. You're unmuted, but I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, I had my microphone also muted.
Okay.
I just want to say that I think we need to make admin work as weighted as heavily as we do, picketing or canvassing in DSA. There's not enough people doing admin work, and it mostly falls on women to do admin work, unfortunately, and also disabled people. I have been a treasurer in my chapter for 3 years. It's not something that I really wanted to do, but it needed to be done. And, we just need to make sure that more people are doing that work. I also think that DSA as a whole needs to let members do the work instead of passing it off to contractors. For example, as mentioned by Comrade Jesse, the National Tech Committee has been working on a system that would allow members and chapters to update their own information and a single sign-on tool to utilize all the different things that we have available to us. Our NTC comrades do this work for free. However, it was stopped for unclear reasons by the NPC, and they want to give our dues money to another contractor. And as Comrade Rael was saying, as an organization, we desperately need to have an open way to hash out political conflicts that are available to members only. Dunks are not going to help us resolve contradictions, only amplify them. Everyone could stand to post a little less, unless it's pet pictures. And I see the rest of my time.
You can have it back if you'll share cat pictures. No, okay. Moving on, next up, thank you very much, C.S. Jackson. Next up, we have Megan R. from Red Star. Following Megan, we have Jorge from Emerge. Megan, take it away.
Thanks so much. Again, coming late in this, a lot of people have said a lot of really important things. One thing that I kind of want to surface that I think has been touched on a little bit, but I want to centralize it. we do a lot of wheel reinvention in DSA. We do a lot of the same thing over and over in every chapter. Sometimes it feels like there's a vibe that like the 2016 to 2018 crew who had to do it all themselves, build, a ton of chapters from scratch, kind of want to haze everybody else and be like, well, we had to do it, you have to do it too. That's not really fair. And it's also not like super smart. Like we have all of these things. We have a zillion cajillion slide decks floating around in various Google Drives. We have a zillion cajillion onboarding, scripts for how to do it. We have reading lists. We have, basic organizer trainings. It's all just all over the place. Nobody's ever consolidated it. There have been various efforts, but it has never been really prioritized because we do this thing where we're like, well, if it's internal work, it's bad. The only good work is external work. But actually, like, good internal work can save us a ton of time that makes it so much easier to do effective external work. So that is a thing that I would really like to see us kind of focus on. How can we stop reinventing the wheel, share resources, get this stuff moving between chapters? I think we also a little bit look for shortcuts on this. I saw, and look, I'm all for statewide orgs, but I don't think that a statewide org is going to solve the problem of the fact that we've burned ourselves out by reinventing the wheel over and over. We literally don't have enough of a middle leadership layer to fill statewide orgs in most places. We're barely having competitive elections in most steering committees. National bodies do not have enough people to fill out their steering committees. We are struggling for that middle layer. So like a statewide body, great, who's gonna do it? In a lot of places, in some places, in the bigger states, in New York and California, where you have 20 chapters per state, that's a different story. But a lot of states have 3 chapters, 4 chapters. You're going to give up your whole steering committee to make a statewide org whose job it is to share info. I'm not sure we're there yet. So I think if we can do a better job of not reinventing the wheel, of sharing information and resources, internal communication, codifying and standardizing things in such a way that they're malleable. I mean, different conditions are going to be different everywhere, but a basic, here's what DSA is, onboarding slide deck, is something that should be readily accessible to every chapter leader. So that's a thing that we're doing wrong that we could totally do right. This is like a super fixable problem. Just got to get those networks, those internal communications rocket and rolling.
Thank you very much, Megan. Up next, we have Jorge from Emerge. And then following Jorge, we have Austin B. from the Anti-Zionist Slate. Thank you so much. And Jorge, take it away.
Thank you so much. Really interesting points everyone's making. I believe there are 3 primary issues with DSA. The first is, I think we've all kind of been talking around it, that the organization, despite all of its incredible successes, can best be described as internally we are probably in some kind of crisis, in the sense that people have been saying that, oh, DSA is a political crisis. While others are saying, oh, DSA is like an operational, organizational crisis. I would argue that it's both, and they play into each other. The largest socialist organization in the United States, in my opinion, is nowhere near its full operational capabilities. The reason I believe is due to sectarian entrenchment and politicization of the organization's operations. There's great work that's occurring in one aspect, but also another aspect, but there is no, as Megan mentioned earlier, communal sharing of resources and knowledge and insights that we've all gained. We can only do it together, and I think we have to recognize that. The manner in which we cut this kind of Gordian knot of dysfunction, in my opinion, is by cohering a unified organization. However, before we can even begin to discuss a unified political platform or a unity of thought, we must have a unified political strategy or unity of action. Like, what are we doing? Kwame Ture, credible organizer, once said, unity is not a feeling. Unity is not an emotion. Unity is a means of channeling the energies of the people towards given objectives within principles. Second, I think there's a huge elephant in the room. As a person of color, and other people of color in this call can probably also tell you, DSA is very white. How can we possibly lead the multiracial, multi-gender working class in this country if we do not represent it? We must actively recruit and uplift membership from diverse racial backgrounds. We must proactively engage with communities of color, understand their specific struggles, and integrate their experiences into our collective struggle. To assure these communities they belong among our ranks, we must also ensure our leadership reflects a commitment to racial diversity. If our goal is to become the leaders of the popular coalition to bring about a socialist revolution in the United States, then we must have individuals from all racial backgrounds occupying leadership throughout multiple levels in DSA. The last thing I want to point out is we have to acknowledge this, which is we are on the precipice of a catastrophic war with China, and DSA must prioritize a campaign to prevent this war. And thinking from my experience, everyone's talking anti-imperialism, internationalism. Myself and Luisa are the only people, very respectfully to everyone here, are the only people on this call that are the steering committee of the International Committee. And we can tell you that many people around the world are terrified about this fact. The march towards war with China is also a convenient diversion, as it only serves the machinations of the ruling class, as they will manipulate the narrative through its various media operations in order to manufacture consent for a war and perpetuate a climate of fear and hostility, ultimately distracting the working class from the origin of their exploitation, which is capitalism, and rather project those resentments they have towards an other. We must dispel the fog of nationalism and reorient the workers' gaze towards the real struggle that is the class war in this country. We have to demonstrate to workers how the US government uses larger and larger portions of the taxes they pay every single year to wage a never-ending war known as imperialism to assert and reassert the dominion of its ruling class over the rest of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Up next, we have Austin B. from the Anti-Zionist Slate. Following Austin B., we will have Austin Ray from Red Labor. Take it away, Austin.
Thank you, comrade. So I want to thank all of our comrades here today for actually really getting into the clarity of like many of the problems that we're facing as an organization right now. There are things that I certainly agree with, but then there are also certainly things that I do disagree with, which I think is very good for us to clarify that. So where I think DSA is going wrong, I think we know the train is going off the tracks right now in our organization. We're seeing chapters face insolvency. We're seeing the number of OCs decreasing. We're losing members in the last 2 years. We've lost tens of thousands of members, which is impacting chapters' capacities to engage in socialist organizing. It's impacting chapters' ability to actually train future socialist organizers. And that's a problem. And those are all overlapping problems that I think also one of the critical things that's leading to is we have national leadership that is not actually leading by example. The only example that they're providing in many situations is an example of how not to be a leader in a democratic socialist organization. And as a member of the Anti-Zionist Slate, I think one of the biggest symptoms we've seen this is in the issue of electoral accountability and the behavior of our elected members while in office. A lot of our elected, I would be remiss in not mentioning the situation that happened over the last 2 years with Jamal Bowman and his frankly absurd and horrific votes to support an apartheid government in Israel by giving them billions of dollars in Iron Dome funding and shaking the hands of a publicly admitted Israeli war criminal who happens to be their prime minister. Like, those kinds of things made my blood pressure boil. And I know it upset a lot of DSA members across the country. Nearly 50 chapters and thousands of members openly were disagreeing with the National Political Committee's decision not to really sanction Jamal Bowman in any significant way. And that, I know, affected my local chapter. Personally, like, we tried to get Palestinian solidarity rights organizing off the ground here in our chapter, but because of the failure of the NPC to actually show truly principled anti-imperialist and anti-Zionist leadership, our chapter, like, we lost all respect in the eyes of grassroots Palestinian solidarity organizers. And thankfully, over the last 2 years, many of my comrades in my chapter have worked very diligently to kind of rebuild those relationships. but it still was a massive setback for our chapter. And I think overall, if we're to kind of like fix this, we need principled anti-imperialist and anti-Zionist leadership on the NPC, which I'm glad that we're seeing so many candidates from that flank of DSA running in this election. And I know any dedicated anti-imperialists, they got my delegate vote. So thank you, comrades.
Thank you very much, Austin B. Up next, we have Austin Ray from Red Labor. Following Austin Ray, we will move on to the third question. Ties both these last two questions together. What could DSA do differently? And that will be led off by, that one's going to be led off by Luisa. So we will start with, we're going to finish off this question here now, though, with Austin Ray. What is DSA doing wrong? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll try to be succinct. I want to commend my fellow Austin B, for bringing up Jamal Bowman, because that was a big thing I was going to bring up, right? When we talk about a leadership crisis in the DSA, we talk about an NPC that, for whatever reason or a variety of reasons, I think there's multiple reasons, is really unwilling to punish and hold accountable the most public people of the DSA, which are the people we either nominate or run elections for or give our support to. And I think that has a huge effect on the DSA. And I think, millions of workers in the United States, they see that, and they see that they're affiliated with the DSA, and that really affects our prospects for recruitment. And I think that might have something to do with why our numbers are falling and why people are leaving, is because of that leadership crisis. It's with Jamal Bowman in the Iron Dome. It's with the rail strike. And, I'm personally, and the Red Labor Caucus personally, we're not interested in waiting around for more of these things to happen. We think there is a political crisis in the DSA, and we think some of the things that have happened, such as those two examples I gave, are because of that political contradiction, which has to do with our relationship to the Democratic Party, which is connected to our labor strategy, right? If our rank and file strategy does not have a clear definition of what the rank and file is, how its interests are opposed to the union bureaucracy or reformist misleaders or liberal leadership, then we're lost. We're absolutely lost. And so Red Labor, we proposed the clean break resolution. I know I'm probably in the minority here about the clean break. We proposed that resolution. We came up just slightly short of signatures, but as someone running for the NPC, I would make that an issue. I would be that gadfly, and I would be the person constantly pushing for some sort of accountability from our electeds who want to hold the DSA title, but don't want to hold the DSA program. Lastly, I'll just say, Red Labor, our slogan is unity, independence, and socialism. That's our unity, or that's our slogan. And in regards to unity, we believe in the unity around a program, a revolutionary program, right? And that program, it allows for a big tent organization. It allows for democracy and discussion, but it provides for a better opportunity for unity and action. And that program will be the main tenets of not only what we're shooting for, but also those transitional demands that connect the current consciousness and current movement to the socialist future. The other thing we lack, as I brought up before, was independence from the Democratic Party and its NGO apparatus. For Red Labor, that includes the ballot line. And that's one of the main differentiators, I think, from Red Labor and maybe people who support the dirty break. And we're willing to have conversations about them regarding those differences. I think we can work together. With that being said, I'll talk about this more. DSA needs to pursue regroupment, but I'll get into that in the last question because I'm out of time.
Thank you very much, Austin Ray. Up next, we are going to move on to question number 3. What could DSA do differently? That's what could DSA do differently? Luisa from the Luisa Slate, you are up first. And on deck, we will have Francis from Groundwork.
Okay. I want to first state that I don't know all the answers. And unlike the rest of DSA, DSA doesn't have all the answers, right? And so one thing that I've been saying consistently, even before I joined the international committee, is that we need to learn from other movements, especially from the rest of the world, right? Mass parties, mass movements, and it's a really, really basic impulse that we have, but for whatever reason, organizers in the United States think that we need to build everything from scratch. And so that means also, of course, not just looking to dead socialist movements, particularly the the Soviet Union, right? Like that was, it feels like, at least in the beginning when I joined Portland DSA, that was all everybody talked about, as if like that was it, like that was the end of it. That was the end of socialist projects in the rest of the world. And so, you know, the questions are like, how do we develop a culture of proletarian debate, right? How do we get away from just being mad at each other on Twitter? And then if we are a middle class oriented organization, then how do we build a political program that gets us to commit class suicide? How does that happen? How do we get the support of poor people, right? What are the best practices? What does structure look like? What does political education look like? All these things, I feel like at least the answer can start from engaging with the rest of the world and what's been successful in other places, right? So, you know, I'm a big believer of being honest. And like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I do believe that continuing IC work and having these conversations with other socialists around the world is really important. So I'll defer the rest of my time.
Thank you very much, Luisa. Up next, we have Francis from Groundwork. Following Francis, we have Rashad from Marxist Unity Group.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that one thing that DSA needs to do differently is that we have, right now we kind of have like 150 different experimentations going on under like wildly different conditions. Like we have all these chapters and they're taking on work or they're not taking on work, and they're winning campaigns or they're not winning campaigns. Some of them are still growing even in the midst of this membership decline, and some are, you know, some are not. So we have this opportunity to be like learning a lot from each other about what works and what doesn't. And I think we're missing a lot of those opportunities. I think that we can get a lot more granular and specific about the strategies that are beneficial to growing the socialist movement and the strategies that are more dead end. And I think that we need like we need to talk to like across chapters more. And I think that the kind of key part there is that NPC members need to consider themselves as like both political leaders and organizers in DSA. I think that NPC members should have turf, you know, they should have a field operation, like they should have chapter leaders that they talk to regularly and that they are able to kind of ask detailed questions of and learn from and be in close contact with. It's kind of a problem that, you know, the strongest connection to national that a chapter has is really through the staff field organizer, who's contractually obligated to be apolitical. You know, we need the NPC to be political leadership of the organization. And a huge part of that is an actual relationship with chapter leaders on the ground who are doing creative and exciting and interesting work. So I think that's like a huge thing. Another piece that DSA I think needs to do differently is, like I mentioned earlier, we have this wildly varying relationship to our electeds across the organization. But there are kind of like basic things that we need to have implemented in every like chapter elected relationship or like NPC elected relationship. Like we need to be having regular meetings. We need to have like to align on political priorities. We need to have you know, open lines of communication between the membership and electeds. Like I said, in the form of town halls or similar. And then we need to have kind of on a third topic, like we need to have really concrete goals for growing the organization. Like I think every chapter should have a sense of what their field capacity is and like their fundraising capacity and a plan to double it. You know, I think that that's something that we can do. It's like concrete ways that we can grow and improve the strength of our work. But we need to just be, you know, we need to be kind of practical about it. And I also think that like getting more granular on like the things that really do work in terms of growing the organization, bringing in new members, winning campaigns, etc., and like strengthening ourselves as socialists those are things that, like, as we get more granular and detailed and quantified on, like, we can also, that helps with kind of the conflict and the infighting. And because we're not just like tossing around, like calling each other names or being mean to each other. We're like looking at the numbers and looking at the data and making concrete decisions together about how we grow our work.
Thank you very much, Francis. Up next, we have Rashad X from the Marxist Unity Group. Following Rashad, we have Aaron B from Lighthouse Caucus. Rashad, take it away.
DSA should be more present in the lives of workers of color. Currently, DSA is investing in various efforts on that end, from the Multiracial Organizing Committee nationally to my chapter's local mutual aid work. We partner with the Mexican Migrant Unification Center. These efforts aside, DSA must also ensure its investment in the Afro-Socialist and Socialist of Color Caucus nationally, a convention-created body. A conclusion I came to after doing some self-critique. I was originally involved in the caucus towards the end of 2021, and I'll never forget my first meeting. The power of being in a space that was so full of people of color for the first time in DSA was absolutely liberating. Unfortunately, I had to step away from that national work when I moved back home to Northeast Illinois, because I needed to stabilize our young chapter that had just gotten started in 2021 and was one of those chapters that was on the brink of dissolving. After working hard to be one of those leaders that have stabilized a small chapter that's just gotten started, and now we're on a pathway towards that continued growth, I've returned to supporting the organization by bringing that energy nationally, by joining the Growth and Development Committee. That's where I now serve on the steering committee, doing that growth work that many candidates talked about today. With my national work on the GDC going smoothly, I began 2023 with the goal of returning to AfroSoc to expand the terrain of my national work and bring those growth and development principles to the multiracial growth of our organization. And since then, I've stepped up to serve on the AfroSoc Executive Committee. So I'm now asking all potential BIPOC NPC comrades to join me in investing our time on the caucus. I'm asking all BIPOC members to join me in investing our time in the caucus. And I'm asking all white comrades watching to play your part by inviting all people of color you know in your life to the caucus as well. Because we are a beautiful united front of current DSA members, people who are former members of DSA but have felt pushed out, like one of our most active members living in public housing who felt burned by an elected in New York going against our support for public housing. And we are also a place where people of color who are not political yet, who are not socialists for the first already, or are not members of DSA can come to their first political event.
Thank you very much, Rashad. Up next, we have Aaron B from the Lighthouse Caucus. Following Aaron, we have Rael from Socialist Majority Caucus. Aaron, take it away.
Turning the timer on so I don't mess up again. I'm going to go contrarian in with this question, I guess, in that I think DSA should try not to organize out of fear, but for hope. I think a lot of times people are scared that other comrades are going to ruin this special thing we have on both the right or the left. Like we look at our electives and we think they're going to screw it over and DSA is going to like go bad somehow. And I think there is actually a lot of things that we are like consensus is like sometimes it feels like nothing changes and all you push and it never goes anywhere. And why do you spend all your time in this org? But I actually think consensus is shifting ever so slightly. You got to maybe spend 10 hours a day on Twitter to like understand it. But like there is like a lot of stuff that's sort of like coming into focus. I hear across both wings a lot of focus on chapters. That chapters are where the heart of DSA is, and we need to put a lot of focus on there. Everyone recognizes that recruitment is down, and we need to work to solve that. Everyone has their own answers to that, but everyone agrees we should solve the recruitment problem. There's also been like a focus on social layer of chapters that I feel like in the past would have been controversial or like a waste of time. But a lot of people are sort of starting to understand that you need this social layer of membership. Maybe we should have just branded the mutual aid working group as like with soccer balls and then been like, this way people would understand what we're trying to do here. I think there's just a lot of agreement as well as disagreement. And so as we're organizing, I would just urge people to try to build up for hope of something instead of fear of what others will do, hope for something that you can build towards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Up next, we have Rael from Socialist Majority Caucus. Following Rael, we have C.S. Jackson from the Libertarian Socialist Caucus. Rael, you're up.
Thank you. DSA does some great stuff, and obviously we talked about some of the not so great stuff that DSA does, but we're a growing organization and we'll get there. I think three things come to mind when I think of this question. One of them is building election infrastructure, which sounds like, wait, what? What are we doing differently? I think that our elections program nationally can use a lot of work. And two things really pop out, especially as we talk about accountability with our electeds and how we can build relationships with our electeds. The first one is DSA should and could be working with chapters to identify and endorse races where DSA is the determining factor. If we're the dominant member of a coalition that's electing somebody, or a coalition that's pushing for a specific bill or whatever, anything like that, we ultimately tend to set the rules for them and set the confines of what we're pushing for. And the second thing is assisting chapters in organizing socialist in office committees to facilitate work with the electeds. Here in New York City, we have the Socialist in Office Committee, which meets either the elected itself or they send the staffer sometimes with our chapter leadership, and they work together. Is it perfect? No, absolutely not. But it is a step in the right direction. This is something that hasn't really been done in the US. Membership retention, as I said before, and I won't really relitigate this, but as I said before, membership, the national organization should be pushing chapters to build mechanisms to retain membership. That comes as part of yearly membership drives and just notifying members when their dues are about to lapse. Lastly, and I think most comrades are very comradely and disciplined, but we do have to encourage comrades when it becomes uncomradely or people will talk about internal deliberations online to engage in comradely debate with each other, exercise discipline about what we share in public. If we lose comradeship, we lose everything. This is the big thing that makes us as an organization united. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rael. Up next, we have C.S. Jackson from the Libertarian Socialist Caucus. Following C.S. Jackson, we have Megan R. from Red Star.
Yeah, I want to pick up on things that Rashad and Jorge said, and as someone who is Native American and not in the Elizabeth Warren sense of the word, you know, I think that one of the concrete ways that we can attract more people of color, more Native Americans is, for example, the state of Arizona is withholding water from Native American tribes to win concessions. We should show up for the Navajo and other tribes and apply every method that we have available to us to help them. Not only is it the right thing to do, but it will draw people in and it will be remembered. DSA could also sponsor mobile health clinics in the rural South and Appalachia for the cost of one NHGO contract or independent investigation. Actions like these create power because they create a base of comrades who we need now more than ever. We also need to do a better job of educating and developing our members. Every member of DSA should understand how to give and receive criticism and go through abuse literacy training. If you have a political position, be prepared that someone will be opposed to it probably. They may organize with others. Opposition is not bullying. If you cannot or are not willing to explain your politics and decisions to members, how can you defend them to hostile media, politicians, or even curious would-be members? Furthermore, our electeds represent their constituencies, of course, but they should do so in line with the DSA platform. I recently saw an article that argued socialists in office need to be able to vote in ways that might appeal to voters in red states. You know who else that makes that argument? Democrats. You know what happens to people that vote that way? They lose. People are attracted to our politics and our positions. We shouldn't compromise on those. Our elected shouldn't increase police budgets, as in the case of our DSA LA electeds. They shouldn't break strikes, and they shouldn't fund endless wars. That's not socialism, and that's not what I want DSA to be. And I see the rest of my time.
Thank you very much, Seamus. Moving on to Megan R from Red Star, and then following Megan R, we have Jorge from Emerge.
Yeah, thanks. So before I tell you my actual answer here, one thing that I want us to think about, we're all sort of, and I almost just did it myself, falling into the trap of DSA should, right? DSA should, DSA should. DSA is us. There's not anybody else. There's not somebody who's coming to save us. Bernie's not going to come to save us. AOC is not going to come save us. Sean O'Brien's not going to come save us. Nobody's coming to save us. It's just us. We are DSA. That's it. So if we want to fix stuff, that's on us. And so with that in mind, my Slate and I, John L and Sam HL from the Red Star Slate, came into this convention season really thinking about like, okay, it's us. If we get elected, it's us. We have to do this work. What will that work look like? And that's part of what prompted us to come up with this leadership pledge. And Rashad mentioned it, but I'll post it in the chat again here. And we've been really proud that a number of other caucuses and independent candidates have signed on to this, because I think if we come together around this basic program of how we're going to function on the NPC, we're going to come in a lot stronger and not make some of the mistakes that were made last time. So just to hit on some of the things while I have some time, improving the agitational nature of our publications. This is something, there's a resolution that's coming out. We'll debate what this actually looks like. That's fine. But we all believe that these publications need to come out swinging. We have this rare platform where we can be like getting socialism out there in front of people's faces. They need to do it. They need to represent diverse viewpoints of the org. They need to be hype machines for cool stuff the chapters are doing. And they need to be democratic. We want to repair and advance relationships with DSA electeds. We need a national, federal socialist in office committee, something that's taking place at this national level. This has been floated from the current NPC, and it literally never happened. And that is outrageous, frankly. Why was this not prioritized? Why do we not have these? This was supposed to happen. If this is going to be like a major thing that we talk about every time, we're always going to prioritize electoral. It's always going to come up top on calls. We're always going to do it. And we can't even get people into a meeting. That's appalling. Can't keep going. We have to get these meetings happening. We have to have those lines of communication open. Increasing visibility of internal NPC democracy. We need people to know how decisions are being made and why, and what those discussions talk about. We want to grow the Growth and Development Committee. One of the things we want to do with the Growth and Development Committee, we submitted an amendment to the consensus resolution. And one of the things it does that I'd like to highlight is create a report, a deep dive report on what is actually happening in chapters, not just a survey, not just an opt-in situation. We need to send people in. We need volunteers who talk to people in chapters and say, what's going on? How's it going? What are your goals? What are you doing? What does factional opposition look like in your chapter? How does it feel? What's the vibe? All those things. We need to take that information, consolidate it, make sure we know where we can rise things up that are really cool, and also figure out what the problems are that we can go around fixing. We need better comms. We need to make sure staff's in good shape. We need to increase coordination between NPC and locals. We need to do something about our appalling grievance process, which includes not spending $1 million gajillion on it. And we got to fundraise because we are about to go flat broke.
Thank you very much, Megan. Moving on to Jorge, and then following Jorge, we have Austin B from the Anti-Zionist Slate. Jorge, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. I believe DSA should be different in two key ways. The first has to do, and several comrades have mentioned this before, that at this current conjuncture, DSA does not have a grand unifying strategy. The next 5 years of DSA will determine the future of socialism in the United States. Either the largest experiment to form a socialist party in many decades will succeed in constructing a party surrogate, or it will fail. Meanwhile, the next 20 years represent a critical conjuncture in terms of where this country is going, an organic crisis that will topple the existing order from the sheer weight of its own contradictions and bringing about a new order altogether. Whether such a new order is a socialist one is up to us. You know, as Megan was saying, yeah, it's all of us. It's all up to all of us to decide what direction this country will go to. For DSA to succeed, given such a terrifying ordeal, we must acknowledge to borrow something from Gramsci, forgive me, but must acknowledge a careful balance between war of position, which is a kind of a cultural or ideological revolution, and the war of maneuver, which is essentially a political revolution. Neither strategy is superior to one another as they exist together as they built to make a praxis that will be able to create a complete and total socialist revolution. The grand strategy was a war of position, as we must wage a long-term counter-hegemonic ideological and cultural struggle by undermining ruling class ideology and instilling working class consciousness throughout society writ large. In other words, raising class consciousness. Whereas the war of maneuver is a grand strategy pertaining to an immediate, direct confrontation with the existing power structures that can lead to immediate improvements to the lives of the working class, whether that's seizing state power directly or a huge strike like the Teamsters one that will happen in a few weeks. Put another way, DSA should organize itself into a fully equipped and operational party surrogate no later than the end of this decade. And sometime between there, we must start considering what does it mean to construct socialism in this country. The other point I want to look for that's different that DSA should be doing is leadership. As the highest leadership body in DSA, the primary function of the NPC is to unite the national organization and local chapters by organizing the collective will of the party. Not only are we just a membership organization, we are all organizers. So the highest leadership body should be organizing all of its membership. The NPC should act as the linchpin, the vital bridge connecting everything in our organization. Without robust connection and cooperation between the local chapters and the national organization, our project is disjointed. If there is no cohesive link for the entire organization, then the NPC must build it. I mentioned before that there is a political as well as an operational crisis. It is true that political flashpoints, whether Jamal Bowman or whether positions on Ukraine, which of course I strongly am in favor of in terms of the position in Ukraine, we must acknowledge that lapsed membership comes from one fact, is that people are paying one fee membership dues. If I'm on the NPC, I would immediately suggest auto-renew fees.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Up next, we have Austin B. from the Anti-Zionist Slate. Following Austin B., we have Austin Ray from Red Labor. Austin B., take it away.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to say a lot of things that I think I agree a lot with what Jorge just said. I think what DSA needs to do and what we must do is actually ground ourselves in a long-term vision for socialist change in this country. As Megan quoted in the chat above, years happen sometime, like the often quoted Lenin quote. Sorry, I'm losing my track here. But yes, overall, like we have to ground our, decades and weeks. We as DSA need to understand that our organization is not at the flashpoint it was during the Trump years. We need to actually engage in long-term organizing, and particularly we need to do mass work organizing. I think our comrades in Commie Caucus actually, I think, hit the nail on the head recently with their article on proletarian disorganization, because I think that's the general issue that not only DSA is facing, but the entire American working class is facing right now. We've lost that kind of understanding of what solidarity actually looks like in a day-to-day, because our unions are getting weaker. Our socialist organization, for decades, our unions and socialist organizations were getting weaker. So we need to actually fundamentally like focus a lot over the next couple of years on mass work organizing. That includes organizing tenants to take on their shitty slumlords who are not providing good affordable housing for folks. We need to work to organize unorganized workplaces. So that way people actually know what it feels like to actually be in a unionized workplace. I've had the experience of working in the service industry and unorganized workplaces, and it fucking sucks. My bosses are tyrannical assholes. And it honestly was an actually really big enlightening moment for me, because it made me understand is that we have to organize unorganized workers where they're currently at. So overall, I think in the future, that's what I really think DSA should be doing differently over the next couple of years.
Thank you very much, Austin B. We're going to move on now to Austin Ray from Red Labor. Following Austin Ray, we have Laura W. from Bread and Roses. Austin Ray, take it away.
Thank you. So as I said before, Red Labor believes in a program of a clean break from the Democratic Party. And I wanted to, regarding what we should do differently, I wanted to bring up some of the arguments that were kind of hinted at today. I do believe that, part of the original sin of the DSA was that it was founded in a legacy of anti-communism, in a sense. And when you look at Michael Harrington and the original realignment strategy, you can kind of imagine, you can imagine a snake devouring its own tail, right? Because in order to carry out the strategy of building socialism and using the Democratic Party, which, he acknowledged was a capitalist party, he had, and the DSA therefore had, to maintain a certain relationship with the Democratic Party and its electeds and capitalist agents. And I think when it comes to anything less than a clean break from the DSA, the formation of a real rank and file strategy, building a pro-party wing within organized labor, linking that to the independent party, anything less of that, including using the ballot line, creates certain contradictions that I believe don't allow us to have a clean break from the Democratic Party. Such as if we go into the Democratic Party as DSA and we run a party surrogate model, I don't believe that we're going to build power in the way that people propose to enable us to eventually leave the Democratic Party. I think that's the contradiction there, because if you want to reform election laws and you want to make it easier for an independent party to become a possibility, you have to work with capitalist Democrats in order to make that happen. And you see how that wears people down. You see how it's worn the squad down with their recent decisions regarding everything that's been mentioned here, with the Iron Dome, with the rail strike, etc. So I think that's one of the things that I think we should be doing differently, is taking the idea of breaking with the Democratic Party, emphasizing that, and exposing the contradictions that lie within the dirty break. Now, some smaller things is, as an NPC candidate, I really believe on working on the state level in many areas. There's other DSA locals that have, basically supported the idea of a clean break as well. It's not just Boise DSA. And I think as an NPC candidate, if I win, reaching out to those chapters, those DSA chapters, and figuring out what would a state program look like to run independent DSA candidates. What are the conditions in your state? What are your inroads within organized labor? And how can you throw that into an electoral run that fundamentally is independent from the Democratic Party? Lastly, I know I got 20 seconds. We have to do better about bringing a socialist program, bringing the socialist program into the ranks of organized labor in order to fight the bureaucracy. That's all.
Thank you very much, Austin Ray. Up next, we have Laura W. from Bread and Roses. Following Laura, we'll have Jesse from Reform and Revolution. Laura, take it away.
To strengthen the democratic character of DSA at the national level, we need full-time paid co-chairs and paid leadership for national committees. NPC members simply cannot be politically effective when they are purely volunteers. Stipends for them means more democratic control for members, and full-time national co-chairs would act as spokespersons for DSA in the public's eye at the national level, which we have been sorely lacking. So delegates, please vote yes on the Bread and Roses proposal for full-time paid elected co-chairs. And since so many of us are excited about labor, we need to recommit to our orientation to bottom-up shop floor power and get additional staff time for labor campaigns and make the NLC leadership stipended. So delegates, please vote yes on the NLC consensus resolution unamended. And finally, we need not just operational independence from the Democratic Party, but also independence of strategy and identity. So delegates, please vote yes on the amendment to the NEC resolution, act like an independent party. This amendment lays out what it would look like for candidates to act as organizers first, organizers in chief, like Bernie said, and legislators second. And that would make every election not a competition between just the right wing and liberals, but between the right wing, liberals, and socialists.
Thank you very much, Laura. And finishing up question 3, we have Jesse from Reform and Revolution. What could DSA do differently? Following that, we are going to move on to our closing statements, which will be started by Aaron B. from the Lighthouse Caucus. Jesse, you're up to close out question 3.
All right, it's a privilege to go last on this one because I can just steal everybody else's answers. But also, primarily DSA needs to engage in national campaigns. Firstly, we need a national campaign to pressure the Federal Drug Administration to continue to remanufacture Adderall because this shortage has left DSA in the dearth of organizing. Okay, apologies. It's been a long question round. I'm just getting out with it. I don't think I can answer this question effectively in 2 minutes, like what DSA needs to do differently. I think it's going to take primarily this next convention, this next NPC term, probably the next convention and the following NPC term to actually shift the organization in the way that we're going to actually get to the kind of goals that many comrades have set out in what we need to change to do better. And I think that that's continuing our orientation to labor. I think it's important to also be striking political independence in our electoral strategy. I support, the resolution regarding democratizing our publication and everyone else who does. Sorry to say, you're all trots now. Ha 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 ha. You want a newspaper. It is what it is. We also should be advocating for delegates at this call to be supporting the Reform and Revolution electoral consensus resolution amendments, a no on Biden, and for a party-like structure, as well as continuing to build a program in DSA that can be utilized to build political independence from the Democratic Party. It's incredibly important that we shepherd the organization into a far more participatory element, which is also why I support Bread and Roses resolution on a democracy commission to find other ways to create substantive democratic reforms that can allow for the widest element of participation possible, similar to our program that we have for most mainstream labor unions. We need to have all members be organizers in the AFSHME fashion, in their way they presented that, every member an organizer. And that means that every member can, start off at the lowest rank and file level, a new member, and, get the experience and needs to organize and become a cadre member of DSA to fill any specific role in the organization from the bottom to the top. We need to be not sliding into this staff-driven NGO model and create a model of democratic participation that allows all members to feel like they are an inalienable need of the organization. Because if we do not have any of these members that are, suddenly falling out after several years of active membership, we're not going to have an organization for much longer. Couple that with the budget deficit and the crisis on our finances, how are we going to pay for all of these, staffers anyway? So I'll leave it there. Apologies for my bit of humor there. It's been a long panel. Check.
Personally, I didn't think the part about the ADD medication was funny. That's directly affecting my life. So anyway, okay, we are going to move on to our closing statements. Thank you to all the candidates for making it this far. Thank you to everybody who stuck with us. 1 minute closing statements. Aaron B. from the Lighthouse Caucus will be leading us off. Aaron, the floor is yours.
I don't have Rashad to hype me up. This is hard. I'll try to help hype everyone that's coming after me. This was great. I know many of these organizers from over the years, watching from afar or up close, and it's really great to see a lot of organizers step up. I'm so glad 40 candidates are running for this election. And if you are interested in talking about what you hope DSA can be instead of what you fear DSA will be, please reach out to me. Love to talk to you. Excited to see everyone in Chicago. I got a Calendly.
Thank you very much, Aaron B. from the Lighthouse Caucus. Thank you for your time. Up next, we have, excuse me, I didn't say this earlier. We have Rael from the Socialist Majority Caucus. The floor is yours, Rael.
Thank you, comrades. Comrades, we're at difficult times for our organization and the left broadly. But ultimately, through our work organizing the working class, we can win. The reality of it is just we're the only game in town, and the working classes, they need us. They need us to succeed here. We have to stick together. We have to work together. We have to organize together, regardless of our political orientations. A better world is possible, but we really, 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 really have to stay united and push the needle in the right direction. I hope you like what I said, what I have to say, and I hope that you can vote for me and the rest of the Socialist Majority Caucus slate. Grace from New York City, Renee from East Bay, Melina from Detroit, Sarah from Metro Cincy, and Colleen from Denver. And join the caucus. If you like what I was saying, you could Google us or you could find us on Twitter. I'll drop some links. And thank you so much for Phoenix DSA for organizing this. You guys were amazing. And I hope to be able to visit you guys sometime.
Thank you very much. That would be awesome. That's Rael from the Socialist Majority Caucus. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Up next, we have C.S. Jackson from the Libertarian Socialist Caucus. Following C.S. Jackson, we will have Megan R. from Red Star.
Hello, everybody. This is C.S. Jackson. I just want to thank our fabulous host for emceeing this whole thing. It's been great. And then I just want to say that I realize that my politics are not in the majority right now, but to quote Stuart Hall, politics does not reflect majorities, it constructs them. I hope you will help me construct that majority. If you agreed with anything I've said today, please urge your delegates to rank me number 1 and Tom number 2, and then rank any other candidates who have signed the Red Star Leadership Pledge. And also urge your delegates to pass the NHGO resolution, the Anti-Zionist resolution, and the International Committee resolutions unamended. If you have any questions for me, ask them in the forums because I won't answer them on Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, C.S. Jackson. C.S. Jackson from the Libertarian Socialist Caucus. We appreciate your time. Thank you for being here today. Up next, we have Megan R. from Red Star. Following Megan, we will have Jorge from Emerge. Megan, take it away.
Yeah, so just to echo, thank you so much to Phoenix DSA for hosting this. This is not a small undertaking. I think most of us here are organizers and know what it means to get a panel together with like 3 people, let alone 12. Incredible. And thank you to all my fellow candidates who took time out of this beautiful summer afternoon to come talk socialism. So that's very exciting. I am an open book. I am happy to talk to anyone. I am about to put all of my info in the chat. This includes my phone number. If you call me, I will not answer, but please feel free to text me. I never answer my phone. It's not just you, it's like also my mother. Red Star info about our slate. Yeah, hit me up on Twitter, on email, on phone, well, text. Yeah, I look forward to talking to you and seeing folks at convention. I'm very excited.
Thank you very much, Megan R. Megan R. from Red Star with us today. Thank you for spending your time here talking to all these delegates. Up next, we have Jorge from Emerge. Following Jorge, we will have Austin B. from the Anti-Zionist slate. Jorge, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to everyone that came today, candidates, everyone that's calling in, and especially thank you to Phoenix DSA. Comrades, everywhere, our enemies wish to divide us. The long, dark shadow of fascism will loom over the entirety of this NPC term. A decrepit Democratic Party will launch a haphazard attempt at defending liberal democracy. Fascism will obliterate our hard-fought rights and freedoms. It will crush our aspirations for a liberated society and trample our revolutionary spirit. This unity will only leave us vulnerable, aiding the fascist cause. The enemy's plan is to divide and conquer. We must resist this strategy We must build and lead a united anti-fascist front. As leaders, our duty is to thwart these forces of disorganization and build DSA into a powerful party formation. We must remember that alone we are weak, but together we are an indomitable force. Each hand must reach out to one another, not in aggression, but in comradeship united by the common purpose of socialism. It is in this shared purpose where we find strength. Strength to uplift the working class, strength to defy the ruling class, strength to usher in a new dawn. Such an enormous task requires an unwavering leadership that is steadfast to its relentless commitment to socialist revolution. I aspire to provide such leadership. Rank me first for a DSA united against fascism and imperialism. Thank you. And also join the International Committee.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Thank you very much for being for your time. Thank you very much for your time, Jorge from Emerge. Thank you for being here with us today. Up next, we have Austin B. from the Anti-Zionist Slate. Following Austin B., we have Austin Ray from Red Labor. Austin B., take it away.
Thank you, comrades. Again, I think Phoenix DSA deserves an amazing round of applause for putting on this panel. It was immensely clarifying to see all the different candidates and their different factions kind of coming at each other with different ideas and different perspectives. It's amazing. It's inspiring. I also want to reiterate, if y'all are interested in scheduling a one-on-one with me to talk about my candidacy, or the rest of the anti-Zionist slate, which includes not only myself, but also Catherine and Ahmed. They are both amazing candidates. I can vouch for them entirely. Principled socialists and anti-Zionists. So if you are interested in talking with us about our slate, I'm going to drop my information in the chat. Okay, yeah. So just shoot me an email at austinhowardbins@gmail.com. That's my personal email. I usually am fairly responsive with my emails. But if you all want to chat, I'm free to chat in between now and convention. Also, I'll see y'all in Chicago in a couple weeks. So solidarity forever, comrades.
Thank you so much, Austin Benz from the Anti-Zionist Slate. Thank you for spending your time with us here today. Up next, we have Austin Ray from Red Labor. Following Austin Ray, we have Laura W. from Bread and Roses. Austin Ray, take it away.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to echo the thanks for Phoenix DSA, and like one of the other panelists said, it's been extremely enlightening to see everybody. It's kind of rare that this many people from this many different caucuses meet, and the states that were involved. So it's really, really cool, and it was a cool experience. I don't have links prepared, but if you want to find Red Labor online, just look up Red Labor Caucus of the DSA. I guess a shout out to Kent Kaiser, who was supposed to actually fill in for me today, but he's in Cuba right now. He wishes he would have been here, but he wanted to say hi. And yeah, I mean, if you believe in a class independent DSA with a revolutionary program based within support from the trade unions, then vote me in for NPC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Austin Ray. Appreciate you being here. That's Austin Ray with Red Labor. Up next, we have Laura W. from Bread and Roses. Following Laura W., we will have Jesse D. from Reform and Revolution. Laura, the floor is yours.
I thought this was a fantastic panel, and I hope everyone watching will think critically about the similarities in vision and also the differences in vision that you heard today. So if you believe DSA should commit to bottom-up labor power, creating an independent socialist identity through elections, and making DSA more party-like than NGO-like, I hope you will join me in voting for the Bread and Roses slate and our proposals. If you aren't sure about my perspective, I really encourage you to voice your ideas on the forums, convention Slack, social media, in a publication, or feel free to reach out to me one-on-one. And maybe I will learn from your criticism. So thanks, Phoenix. See you at convention.
Thank you very much, Laura. That's Laura with Bread and Roses. Thank you for spending your time with us here today. Up next, we have Jesse from Reform and Revolution. Following Jesse, we have Luisa from the Luisa Slate.
Thanks again so much to Phoenix DSA for holding this. I've come to several of their political events previously. It's always top notch, something that should be replicated elsewhere. More chapters should be doing these kinds of events to educate the members and delegates on who they will be actually voting for, rather than just reading screeds online or on Twitter. But I'm also going to drop our screeds and Twitters in the chat right now. But you should also take a look at our magazine, Reform and Revolution. It's on the second link there. It's one of the best print publications that a DSA caucus puts out. And we have an excellent convention issue coming up, and you can get that shipped directly to your house if you subscribe down below. Great opportunity to see an excellent, I'll give you just a preview of what the cover art is going to be. It's two skulls, one with a Trump haircut and one with Biden aviators. So, you know, just showing the kind of decrepit elements of the US empire in one image. Thank you again for all of your time. Please rank Philip #1 and Jesse #2 on your convention delegate NPC votes. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Thank you for being here today. That's Jesse from Reform and Revolution. Following Jesse now, we have Luisa from the Luisa Slate. And following Luisa, we have Francis from Groundwork. Luisa, take it away.
First thing, just reiterating that we have a lot to learn. We have a lot to gain from learning from the winners through developing international committee, through making connections with the rest of the socialist movement globally. One that, and I cannot stress this enough, is much bigger than DSA, right? So for instance, I'm in Brazil. PT, a Workers' Party here, is got 2.5 million members, right? So I know in DSA, it literally depends on who you ask about how many members we are, but whatever you think that number is, it's way less than 2.5 million, right? Second is ditching the middle class baggage of living in the cultural and political hegemony of the United States, right? Learning how to identify with poor people in this country, but also the rest of the world. So recruiting poor people, particularly poor people of color, to DSA, and then doing that through expanding our international work, I believe is really important. Some people like to use the phrase multiracial working class movement in terms of how they believe they want to move DSA, and that's fine. But as a socialist internationalist and somebody who's a Latin American, somebody who grew up in fear of the state, right, police, immigration, stuff like that, for pretty much all of my youth. I prefer the term no war but class war. A lot of it to do with the fact that I just refuse to live in fear anymore. So, no imperialist wars against poor Black and brown people across the rest of the world, and particularly engaging in class war against the capitalist class here domestically. So that's right. I'm running for NPC, and that's why I hope you vote for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Luisa. Luisa is running as an independent. Thank you very much for spending your time here today with us here at Phoenix DSA, teaching us all about your opinions and views. Up next, we have Francis from Groundwork. Following Francis, we will have Rashad X from Marxist Unity Group. Francis, take it away. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you again to Phoenix DSA for hosting this forum, and to everyone who joined. I think the fact that we got like close to 50 people who wanted to spend a couple hours on a Saturday afternoon listening to NPC candidates and making an informed decision about who should lead the organization is a testament to what makes DSA powerful. There's a strong core of this organization, a strong group of folks who are really committed to building socialism in our lifetimes. And I think that's a freaking incredible thing. So thank you so much for having me. I hope you'll consider the Groundwork slate for NPC. I'll drop my info in the chat, and absolutely, feel free to hit me up. I would be down to talk with anybody, anytime about our candidacy. And thank you again, Phoenix DSA.
Thank you so much, Francis. Francis from Groundwork. Thank you for spending your time with us here today. And finally, to wrap this up, we have Rashad X from the Marxist Unity Group. Take it away.
What's more important, just winning more electoral races, or making sure we have the political infrastructure to produce DSA-endorsed electeds that advance our platform, the very thing that should unite us the most? We need them to be on the front lines of agitating, educating, and organizing around our platform, one that clearly calls for de-escalation with China, for example. So let's build majority support for de-escalation by only endorsing candidates that commit to building majority support for our full platform, even if that means we have to elect fewer of them in the short term. Vote for Rashad X and Amy W of the Marxist Unity Slate for NPC, because we know that sometimes less is not only more, but better.
Thank you so much, Rashad. Thank you to everybody who attended today. With that, we are completed with the forum. I'm going to drop a few links in the chat. This was recorded and we will be sending it out via our newsletter linked right here, redallover.net. And we will also be, oh, there was one more thing that I wanted to say that is now slipping my mind. I can't remember what it is, but I'm really, really happy that everybody made it here today. You're all amazing. You're all fantastic. Thank you to all 12 of our participants for taking time today. I will post it to the national forums. Thank you, Matt. And really just genuinely an amazing, amazing forum. I second what was said about this is many more factions and groups than we normally see in any individual DSA meeting. And I just want to say thank you very much. And with that, I will let everybody go. Thank you all. And you all have an amazing, amazing, amazing weekend. Thank you, comrades.